Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Occult Explorers. I'm Snappy, and I'm joined today by my dear friend Dion. How's it going, Dion? We haven't seen you a bit.
Life is beautiful.
Life is beautiful. I'm joined by Shay. How's it going, Shay?
Good, thank you. Good. Lovely to
And
be
we're
here.
joined by Leslie. How's it going, Leslie?
Good.
Amazing. And we're here for part 3 of our deep dive into the roots of chaos magic. So if you've been following along with us over the last couple weeks, we have been looking at the various influences of chaos magic. In our first episode, we started by exploring the founder, Peter Carroll, and his work. And then we explored the occult influences, Alpheus Levi, Aleister Crowley, Austin Osman Spare. And then in our last episode, we looked at the satirical influences. So we examined the works of Max Stirner, egoist anarchist. We looked at Discordianism, and we looked at the works of Robert Anton Wilson. And today we're joined by Dion, who's got another wonderful presentation for us. And you're going to expand on what we were looking at, the main key influences, but you want to look at sort of the people who kind of get left behind in these conversations, people who are related to chaos magic, but may not often get talked about in these discussions. Why don't you take it away?
Well, I don't think any of these people would use the word chaos magic,
Hmm.
a term coined later, like in the late 70s in England. But there's always been chaos magic since day one. That's what the earth is. That's what we live in. That's our world. That's how you start an engine, is chaos. It's an explosion of gasoline and a spark, and then we can get somewhere, drive somewhere. So, and another way I look at chaos is these beautiful waterfalls and rivers when we go hiking, and the postcards and the National Geographic are created through chaotic changes, through hurricanes, storms, and floods. That's how you get a beautiful waterfall. So you need chaos to get beauty.
That's really interesting because Leslie was talking to me about something similar to this. You went looking for the spirits of chaos because you were trying to confront this idea from your perspective. Do you have anything to add, Leslie?
Oh, well, no, I had to make a elegua for my house before I could do any of this.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Right. I just remember you were showing me those Chinese spirits of chaos. What were those guys again?
Well, I thought those were interesting. There's in Taoism, there's the shadow spirits or whatever. And one of them is the Hundun, and it's like a headless pig with wings. And it's a river spirit, and it's associated with the primordial pre-creation chaos, like what
Right.
Dion was saying about it's the precursor to creation.
Yeah, it's such wildness. It makes me think too, like one of the interesting weird things of the moment in terms of both chaos magic and sort of classical magic is the rise of the frog and the goddess Heka. Have you heard about this? Anyone here? So 4chan, right? They're notorious for doing sort of chaos meme magic. And one of the things that they did was they went to that image of Heka, which is, or Kek, which is the
Oh, I
primal
heard.
goddess of chaos in
I
the
heard that.
Egyptian tradition. And they united it with a bunch of other internet memes. And they kind of combined it into this mass thing. So you'll see that Pepe frog with Trump, and then they'll have Kekistan. And it's all these memes uniting in this chaotic fashion. But at its root is this real Egyptian chaos spirit, which is
Oh,
to me, it's just like that quintessential chaos magic. It's both new and old and ridiculous and serious, you know?
Yeah.
Snappy, I'd like to say something about Keck. So
Mm,
Keck is part of how Trump got elected through,
yeah,
it's called meme magic. And the alt-right was using these frogs
yeah.
as a rallying tool, as an icon, as a glyph. And one of the biggest people that put that out there was Nick Fuentes. It is called the Groypers, the Groyper Army. And that was their
Yeah.
main symbol was Kek. And Kek was going to bring about the revolution with Trump. Well, guess what? Kek is against Trump now. They've turned on him. So the actual Kekistan is anti-Trump. And that's chaos magic. If you're going to mess around with Heka, that's what's going to happen. And now they've turned. It's all turned.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
all ridiculous. Go ahead, sorry, Shay.
yeah. No, it's good. No, what to me it's really interesting because Heka is one of my main deities, one of my main ones. It's a she was a wife of Thoth, and it is a primordial deity. So and it's one of the oldest deities in Egypt. But it is magic. It is magic personified, magic incarnate, and as a force of nature. You know, so when you do magic, it has a personality, and this is Heka. And in Egyptian magic, Heka is actually associated as being one of the organizing forces, along with Ma'at, that brings order. And to see Kek flip this, right, and actually turn her into the, it's more like the first being in the Goetia, right, where we see it's part cat and part frog, right? So, and they've actually associated that first magical deity, the first magical spirit out of the Goetia, and they've turned that and made that into Heka. So it's a composite being. We were talking last week about egregores. So they have created a modern, powerful egregore that's based on these old egregores. So it's really
Absolutely.
interesting to watch. Really interesting to watch what's happening there. Yeah.
Also just like terrifying because, you know, the latest revelation has been that, you know, a lot of this, you know, the creator of 4chan, where all of these meme magic was manifesting, is connected to Epstein and was on the island and got funding. So we don't know how deep it is, but enough has come out to put them in direct connection. And then the other big thing is like Ghislaine Maxwell is connected to Reddit. They're connected to a lot of the online news and online media, both of them, and they were manipulating all of this from behind the scenes, it seems.
Like Chaos Magician?
Yeah. You know, and there's a lot of accusations, you know, and this gets into the, I'm putting on my tinfoil hat here, you know, but the accusation is that Epstein is Q, right? Someone who knew Trump, who was connected to the powers that be, who could influence the government and had secrets. Now he's not military, but anyway, you know, tinfoil hat off now. But
No, we got receipts. If you need receipts, we'll do an episode about Paul Ferber and their connections. South Africa.
What
and
is?
the Philippines.
Are you talking about QAnon? What do you?
yeah,
What is Q?
QAnon. So the way that
Okay.
QAnon started is that there's this character named Q who has both connection to the inner Trump regime, but it's also within the upper echelons of the military.
Oh, right. That's
And
why it was
you know,
supposed to be leaked intel.
But leaked on a pedophile website.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leaked on the meme magic ridiculous website where people are anonymous and they do the most horrible stuff, you know.
You know, for me, this has never been like tinfoil hat stuff. I mean, we've got to remember, like when the internet started, there were 4 servers, and the 4 servers were controlled by different arms of the security, the internal security within the United States, and the universities started hijacking them, you know, initially for the universities, so the universities could use the databases of these, you know, Yahoo, Alta Vista. I'm going back in what appears to be a way back machine, but it wasn't that long ago. But these were big computers that were used by for information gathering for security of the United States. And then the universities started sending emails, and emails when they first were quite covert because they didn't want the military to know what they were saying in the emails, right? And then from that, and people think this has gone away. I don't know why they think it's gone away, of course, the internet is all about gathering information. It's all about getting leverage over people that might end up being a threat to the internal government of the United States. And for this to start coming out, it's like, hang on, guys, go back to what it originally was for, and you're surprised by all of this, really?
When I put on my tinfoil hat for conspiracy, it's when everything gets tied up neatly in a bow with a single character. Clearly that's nonsense, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's what you're talking about happening, absolutely, right?
Mhm.
All of these companies that are the foundation of Silicon Valley and the internet all have military or CIA funding and backing. It's always been like that. It's always going to be like that. You don't get to be like Google Maps was developed within military tech. All of that's military tech.
Oh, listen,
It
I
just
was
is.
just hearing a lady diss the library at Alexandria because she said all the good books had already worn out and they had already been recopying only the ones that were useful for statesmanship in the first place. So I don't know. Maybe Dion can bring us back to all the
Well,
goodness and the nature
aliens.
of it all.
Are you guys ready to talk about aliens?
Yes.
Go for it.
Go for it.
My mind is open.
All right. So let's hit the first pick. Let's go to the first picture and get this party started. So you guys were talking about Austin Osman Spare, automatic writing and painting, a form of chaos magic where you would just express, and that became popular. And he's known for his occultism, mysticism, the chaos magic, but he's also known as a pop artist. And when I say pop artist, that's gonna play into the context of the video later. Like in terms of Andy Warhol, pop art of the 60s, and how that could be a form of chaos magic. And so here's Austin with some kitty cats. He liked cats. Cats are quite chaotic creatures at that.
Yeah.
Unlike a dog, you can call a dog and it normally would come to you, but a cat can do whatever it wants. It's going to do whatever it wants by its nature. So let's hit the next pick and we'll get the party started. I just wanted to throw that in there because he was talking about Austin last time, and he fits into the story.
We love him. Oh yeah.
So here's a symbol of some chaotic energy. This is Mahakali on a tiger, sometimes holding fire. And I just want to put that in your subconscious when you go to the next image, if you could, please. And this is Eartha Kitt. And this is where we're going to start the presentation. But you see the symbology. She's on a tiger holding fire, the dark goddess, Eartha Kitt. Eartha meaning earth, dirt, soil, the mother earth. And how does she fit into chaos magic? How does she fit into chaos magic? Even her childhood, she had a tough childhood, was raised by her aunties. So poor at a certain point, they'd go in the backyard and dig up grass. Like that, just like that, that poor. But it built a kind of toughness in her, creativity. She used that as an impetus to do something. And here, this song title is called I Want to Be Evil. This is 1953, I Want to Be Evil. And she's breaking boundaries there for women, for Black folks, for singers, for Christians. There's a lot of boundaries being broken here and some symbologies laid on top of it. Because in the song, it's not about being evil. It's about being free and breaking boundaries and just kind of doing what you want in life. Let's go to the next image.
Do you have something to add, Shay?
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, so here's this next image. Because in 1950, Orson Welles cast her as Helen of Troy in Dr. Faustus. And this is in Paris. And Orson Welles fits in this story too. Because Orson Welles is a chaos magician, 100%. And we'll see that. And he's connected to the other chaos magicians. So this is 1950. That's the woman from, you saw on the cover there. Here she is in Paris in the play Dr. Faustus. And you got to know Orson was a very smart cookie too. I I'd like to talk about Orson for a couple minutes. A little segue, if you go to the next image. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, she here's Eartha with Sammy Davis, but go one more time and let's see if I have the image of Orson. Oh, maybe I don't got it, so forget it. Go back to Orson. All right, so Orson Welles, 1938, War of the Worlds. Y'all heard of that? He did a radio broadcast and people died.
Yeah.
People believed it. They took it
People died.
seriously. He tried
Yes.
to wanted to create a terrifying satire that people would believe, and he didn't think they would believe it that hard, but they did.
You know,
He succeeded and then some.
that's a chaos working. That's chaos magic. He got on the radio, and what's ironic is about aliens. He was saying we're being invaded by aliens, and people thought it was real, but that's really spirits or demons, no? It's just a different form. It's the modern form of spirits or demons in the 50s are aliens, but it's the other, it's the entity, and people believe that we're being invaded. People died over it. The government saw it. In terms of chaos magic and chaos workings, Orson Welles' 1938 War of the Worlds is up there in the top 5 chaos workings, along with a couple others like, and once again, we said Faustus, because that's what this is. But even Dr. Faustus, the play when it came out, Jacob Goethe, when it came out, it's called Sturm und Drang, Storm and Stress. People would kill themselves after the performances in Germany. Chaos working, 100%. Another one was Stravinsky's Rite of Spring.
Right.
The Rites of Spring. People would kill themselves after the performance or freak out. There was riots in the streets of Paris. Is that not a chaos working?
Yeah. But it was very different to the ballet that they were used to. That's why it was like, what the hell's happened here? You know, they're like, we this was against, society. They actually thought it was anti-art. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And that's
wild
what
to
chaos
think about.
is. 100%. So we'll go to the next image now. I just wanted to throw that in there about Orson and chaos workings. The Rites of Spring.
And again, the chaos working has this kind of what I consider the quintessential chaos kind of element.
Oh, I can't hear you, Snappy. I've lost you.
I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Oh.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, you can't hear me, Shay?
Don't know what's happened. I've lost Snappy.
Oh, that's weird. Everyone else can hear me.
I'll go out.
Okay. All right. What I was just going to say is that to me that something like the Rites of Spring again, or even Faust is again really chaos magic because it's both ancient and modern at the same time. Like in the Rites of Spring, they're taking the Scythians and they're putting them on the stage and they're sacrificing a princess. It's something that's ancient, but in this context, it's radical and new and transformative. It's raising that spirit of an older time, right? Him doing Faustus here, right? They're going back to that spirit of romanticism, Strung and Drang, like you said, right? That Goethe embodied, that intense passion where people went mad, right? And that is even hearkening back. Faust isn't based on those earlier devil tales, right? Like it's all going hearkening back, but they're reimagining these in new contexts too. All of these are also radically new at the same time, which is interesting,
Yeah. So let's hit that. So yeah.
I keep thinking of that clip that goes around of Eartha Kitt when they ask her about relationships and compromising, and she just throws her head back and cackles. Compromise.
Exactly.
Right.
An artist can't compromise.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're an employee. You're not an artist. Here's with Sammy Davis looking very dapper in his robe. Mr. Anton LaVey buddy, mafia hangout, associate. So there's a lot with Sammy Davis too, which I'll talk about in later episodes. But I just wanted to show you her connections to different people and how chaos in the 50s and 60s is a little different than we think. Go to the next image.
Yeah.
So in 1967, you got something to say?
Oh, for me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I just always feel like I'm doing show and tell on this podcast.
Oh, wow.
So
Eartha Kitt. Wow, you got her signature. Amazing.
She reckons now she reckoned when I not just her signature, that's a photo of the two of us together.
Awesome.
She wanted a photo with me because she reckons I look exactly like her daughter.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you have a look at her daughter online, apparently her daughter looks very much like me. So we were right in the front row, and she came down. She was like, "Oh, she's only tiny. She's super tiny, and she's got this really big head." And she was like, "Darling, come. We must have a photo together. I have to show my daughter." So yeah. So
Oh, yeah.
I got to meet her and speak with her. Quite a remarkable lady.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
She has I think it was 2 Emmys, 3 Tony nominations. She spoke 4 languages and sang in 11 languages.
Yeah.
Had French hits.
Her first the hit was Turkish because they wanted to, because she was exotic. They didn't know what to do with her, so they got her to sing her song in Turkish. Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. A chaos magician works with language, works with boundaries. And that's what Eartha did. Here she is in 1967, another cat motif as Catwoman. And, you know, people remember her as Catwoman that don't even know she was a singer or there's a lot of elements to her. And the reason I wanted to bring her up, another element of her was dealt with her luncheon with the president's wife, Lyndon B. Johnson, and her name is Lady Bird Johnson. And she was invited to have lunch with the president's wife. And the president's wife asked her about, or the first lady asked her how she felt about Vietnam. And she went off on the first lady and made her cry. She got blacklisted after that. And the CIA started messing about with her. Took out a file on her and were messing with her. There's a lot more to the story of her. You know, even when she wrote her autobiography, which is called Thursday's Child, she talks about that. And David Bowie did a song based on her autobiography, Thursday's Child, if you've heard that title before. And so I got if you could go to the next picture. There she is with Andy Warhol. Because Andy's gonna play into this story as well. Just to let you know that chaos magicians hang out. They're brought together like planets in outer space. It's energies that are brought together, regardless of how different their lives are. And to close up on what happened with Eartha Kitt, she was blacklisted for a while, but about 1978, she came back and she did something called Timbuktu, which you've heard of, and it was on a theater production. I think she got an Emmy for that one. And if anybody's interested, go onto YouTube and type in Timbuktu with Eartha Kitt. And the song she sings in it, one song is about Mahun. It's about Homa or Soma or Kaikian. It's about a formula using cannabis and other herbs. And she gives you the recipe on stage. And she tells you, stir with your wooden spoon, stir it up, stir it up. And you add your cinnamon, you add your nutmegs, you add your cannabis. It's a ancient cannabis recipe. And Eartha Kitt did it on stage, got an Emmy for it. And this is redemption, you know? And there's one more thing she did too that I like. I'll talk about. It's a song called Angelitos Negros, Little Black Angels. It came out, she put it out as a form of protest. She was an activist. A good chaos magician gets involved in politics. That's what their art does. It influences. And I'll read you some lyrics from this song to close up on Eartha. And this is Angelitos Negros. It says, painters painting halos, pictures of only white angels, painter painting hard times and shadows of yesterday. Following all wicked strokes, the painter from ages gone. Painters painting saints in church. How do you know that God is white?
I love
And
it.
it's Angelitos
Wow.
Negros, Little Black Angels. That's Eartha Kitt. To me, that's chaos magic. If we're talking about in the 60s and 50s, she embodies all that. She don't need the title. She embodies it. Her life is that. So yeah. And you know, there's one more person I'd like to talk about. if you can go to the next image, and if anybody has anything to say about that before we move on about Eartha, and that's so awesome that you met her, Shay. I had no clue.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was amazing. I've always admired her since Batman days, you know, for being the best Catwoman. But yeah, she was. I love that photo that you've got there. Like the guy behind Andy Warhol and her is so happy, and the two of them are like, "Oh God!" I just think that's hilarious, that photo. Yeah, yeah,
And they're
but
very
no, it was,
stoic.
yeah, yeah. They're like, "Yeah, okay, take the photo, hurry up." He's so happy about it. Yeah, it's wonder we. It's a shame we don't know who he is. Yeah. Yeah,
You
but
know,
no, I was I was blown away because she was very nice, and she was very approachable and took us out to the back room and said, "Let me have a photo with this lady. She looks like my daughter." And I always thought her daughter's name was Kit, like Kit, but apparently it's Sandra. So there we go. That's what she told me anyway. Hmm. Yeah,
wow.
yeah. So it was 94. I just had to check the date on there. So it was 94. Yeah.
She had a full life, a full life,
Yeah.
you know. Unlike the next artist we're going to go to, you go to
I did
the
want to
next
ask
image.
you, are you going to dive into Andy Warhol? Because we should talk a little bit about Andy
And
Warhol.
this is setting up Andy Warhol.
Okay.
That's what this is
Mhm.
all about. As well, because we're talking about muses with Chaos Magic. There's always a muse. You could be the famous artist, but Dolly has a muse. Somebody has a muse. There's something that's inspiring you to bring out that creativity, to draw it out. And so here we're going to talk about another character, and Danielle Luna. Real name was Peggy Ann. Preacher's daughter. She had a tough life too. Abusive family. But she was very tall and beautiful, lanky. And one day she was out and about, and a photographer saw her and says, "I have to photograph you. You're going to be the next thing." And she did it, and it led to a cover of Harper's Bazaar. And this is what, like 63 or no, 65. Let's say 60. It happened in 65. She makes the cover of Harper's. And it's not even her own photograph. It's an illustrated version of her. The pictures of her are illustrated because that's the first time you have a Black woman on the cover. And there's some blowback from that. They get a call from Randolph Hearst, you know, the Hearst Empire, Hearst Castle,
Newspaper
all that.
Empire. Yeah.
Yeah. He said, "Nah, we can't have Black women on the cover," and blacklists her and tells the artist, like, I will get rid of you unless you drop her. So, and it's at that point, she's in New York, and she's now been told that you're done because you're a Black woman on the cover. And the mother calls because something had just happened. The mother had to shoot her father. The father came home drunk and abusive, the preacher, and she had to shoot him in self-defense. So Danielle's in New York and had just made the cover of Harper's and finds out that she's now blacklisted because she's a Black woman, and her mother just killed her father. She didn't go home. She didn't go to the funeral. She went deeper into a scene. You know, we talk about Andy Warhol factory. That's the New York scene. And she ends up in 3 Andy Warhol films. Go to the next image. Oh, there she is with Salvador Dali. She ends up in a Salvador Dali film. Now, what's special about the Salvador Dali film? She emerges out of an egg, and who's it narrated by? Orson Welles. Oh, we have all of our familiar characters again. Orson, Dali, Andy Warhol, with the muses, the Black women that are breaking boundaries in the 50s and 60s. Well, she was even in Fellini's Satyricon. So she goes to Europe because she's blacklisted here. Go back to that image before, and that's when she makes the cover of Vogue 1966 because she's in England, in Europe. And they say, "Well, we'll put you on the cover." That created more problems. Time magazine put out an article about her calling it the Luna year, 1966, first Black woman on the cover of Vogue. At that, some of the fashion houses got together and blacklisted her again. They said, "We can't have this. We want a white woman to be the lead model." and she's blacklisted one more time. And what's wild about her is she has a connection to language as well. She made up her own language. And when people would talk to her, they go, "Where are you from?" And she would speak in a weird accent, and she would say, "I'm from the moon." And that's where we get the Dianic element. That's why she called herself Luna. And she would tell people, "I'm from the moon," in a weird accent. And she made up her own language, and she had to go into her own space to cope. She was being blacklisted by other people are telling her, "You're the next thing, you're the greatest thing." The highest paid model at that time, 1966, with the white press called her King Kong and saying that we can't have this. And they turned on her. At that time, she's hanging out with Andy Warhol and the whole crowd, and she got into heroin pretty big. It's heroin. And she made it another 10 years before she died and OD'd at the age of 33. Now, what's wild about this, her relationship with the civil rights movement was tense because they wanted her to be an icon for it at the time and lead it. And she was like, nah, she was against it because she's being blacklisted as a black woman. So she would wear blue contacts and try to come up with this whole other identity to survive. Until finally, she had a baby, and that's 1977. And she named her daughter Dream after Martin Luther King. And in the final pictures of, you can see her with the giant afro and her baby. And, you know, what's one of the ironic things in 1967, the first black mannequins that you had at retail stores were based off of her image, even though she was blacklisted from being on magazines. But her image was in the stores as the first black mannequin. So
it's the whole word blacklisted is just so ironic, isn't it? You know,
yeah, they're saying a black
Chaos
ball.
Magic should take that blacklist and make it the glamorous list that everybody wants to be on. You know, it's just like that's how Chaos Magic works. They turn things around. You know, oh,
Well,
blacklist. Well, if you want to be on the blacklist, you have to be cool. You know, that's generally how they do it. But putting a black woman on a blacklist, you know,
yeah,
ironic.
just saying. So, and the way she died, her final night is not very good. She had married an Italian man, and had a baby, and they went to see the parents in Italy. And the night she died, the parents said, "You're not bringing that black woman to the house." So he took the father, took the baby over to sleep with the parents, and she OD'd on heroin at the age of 33. The first black woman on the cover that changed things. And yet there's so much more to this story. That's right. Go to the next image. Another image. Oh, there was that Orson Welles image I was going to show you a while back. It got mixed up. That's Orson as Count Cagliostro, Father Sermon, Egyptian Freemasonry.
Love it.
I mean, it's a play on what
Right.
Orson was up to. Because Orson, like I said, narrated the film with Salvador Dali and Daniel Luna. So she was the muse to the three of the biggest chaos magicians of the time. Go to the next image. There she is. Those poses, Vogue, do the Vogue. She invented that. Because her body type, she invented these lanky poses as a form of nonverbal communication, you could say. This is a language. Because she invented other languages as well. But go to the next image. All right. So this is her with her boyfriend, Brian Jones, Chaos Magician, with Yoko, Chaos Magician, and John Lennon, Chaos Magician. She's in the club of muses. All these people that are famous chaos magicians, there's people behind them that act as a spark or fire or inspiration, though their lives don't always play out the same. So let's go to the next image.
We just got to unpack some of this,
but
a
the
little
next
bit.
image is going to explain this. We'll
Okay.
drive it home. Oh, and there's Brian Jones with Andy. Now, it's all interconnected. These characters. Go to the next image. Oh, well, look at, there's John grabbing his junk, and Andy's getting grabbing on Yoko, and everyone's all interconnected. These chaos magicians I'm talking about: Orson, Dolly, Andy, Brian, Yoko, John, and the muses. Go to the next image. Yeah. Oh, and there's Andy and Dolly. Like, everyone's just connected together. And so you want to talk about chaos magicians? There's two right there. And their muses were Eartha Kitt, Danielle Luna, amongst others. So, you know, these Black women that broke boundaries, chaos magicians at that. And so they're, like I said, it's like outer space. They're brought together by their energies.
Right. There's a lot with that because, Andy Warhol's whole thing, right? He creates that factory in New York and he's basically a voyeur and he's a voyeur of authenticity and radical uniqueness. So he wants to be a voyeur of the street people, the trans people, the queer people, the radical unique people. But he's ultimately an exploiter, right? His whole thing is commercialization of art
Pop
and the
art.
selling of all
That's
these images,
Osmond Spare, the pop art.
right?
That's
But and this is ultimately though what winds up exploiting these queer peoples also in these mentally ill people and these street peoples, what also gets him killed. He gets
Yeah, yeah.
killed by Valerie Solanas, who was the woman who wrote the Scum Manifesto. She was someone who was schizophrenic, a radical feminist who was severely abused by men. And she wrote, in the Scum Manifesto is the Society for Cutting Up Men. Now, she was at the factory and witnessed, Andy being an exploiter, basically,
yeah.
is how she viewed him. And
Yeah.
she then decided to take out her rage on him and shot him, and he died.
But that's an art piece. That's how he should have gone out. If he wants to
Yeah.
be this authentic artist, that's how authentic can you get.
Yeah. But I do remember the most disturbing piece I saw, by Andy Warhol, and have since remained very anti these black and white, pieces, was he got a woman on camera shooting up on heroin, right? And his discussion of it afterwards was, I wanted to show the glamour of it. And, it's just like this woman is, you know, desperate for her 5 minutes of fame, to the point where she's going to show herself in her worst state on camera, shooting up on heroin. So yeah, he was very, very exploitative. Not worried whether or not, people said to him, "What if she died?" And he went, "Well, that's part of, I would have shown it." So he's very exploitative. It was, what he did at that factory was not good. It wasn't
And
good.
he didn't take all the drugs that people took, the heroines and the LSDs. He took methadone, which is like an Adderall thing.
Mm,
He was just, his mind was wired differently.
yeah. Yeah, but it was
He didn't
exploitative.
die
It was
right
very,
away, but he died a few years later of complications from his gallbladder related to all of this, you know.
yeah.
But yeah, the whole thing with Andy Warhol and with Salvador Dali that also needs to be talked about. Both of these characters become millionaires and become
Mm,
centers of celebrity. They're both fetishized celebrity culture. Dali especially so. Also, we can't forget that Dali was intimately connected to the fascists in Spain and was
mhm.
always a far right radical. Even though he connected with a lot of these leftist radicals like John Lennon and Yoko Ono, you know. Um, but
Do you
those
remember
two are,
we did the episode about the Surrealist ball, the Rothschild ball that he did, and all the
yeah.
famous Illuminatis was there, and he had people pacing them through all these mythopoetic rituals, and
Yeah, it gets so wild with Dali, right? Because he's at the heart of a lot of that wild stuff that was happening in the World War II and after, and he makes so much money. And this is the other thing with Andy Warhol. They commercialize their art, right? And he fetishizes Andy Warhol, the commercialization of it. He, in many ways, is responsible for so much of what becomes celebrity culture, and it's like it's coming from this weird voyeuristic place of exploitation and money magic. And that's the kind of chaos magic that I see these two particularly doing, right? And we need to juxtaposition this though with Yoko Ono. I did a whole deep dive on Yoko Ono because she's one of my favorite artists of all time, and she's a radical chaos magician for sure, but she's doing her own thing. She comes out of earlier surrealism. just like Dolly, and she comes out of you know, she released a bunch of these radical magical pieces where it's she would do things like her kind of magic would be like go and draw a map, like draw yourself a treasure map and then just randomly and then go explore it. And she has all these little games and stuff that you would do. And this was her early magic before she met John. Um, but she also wrote Imagine and she's the real radical in terms of a lot of that piece and a lot of the woman magic that John was all about as well. He tried to, famously he called women the N-word of the world and caused all kinds of controversy. A lot of this was him just reiterating Yoko to the point where, like in modern versions of Imagine, she gets the lyrical credit for it because it comes out of her journals. I actually got to witness, though, one of the coolest art pieces ever from Yoko Ono. And I got to go so I went to Iceland and she set up the John Lennon Peace Tower in Iceland. And people would send their prayers and then they're projected in this light to Venus. And so she is quite like she's actually transmitting people's prayers to the mother goddess and asking for world peace. We can be critical of these people for sure, but I do believe that John and Yoko have, that hippie magical intention,
Hey, but
Uh,
check it out though.
right.
They went through a period where they
I
were
know.
doing the tar and the heroin and all dark in the house by themselves, just saying,
know.
because they hung out with
And-
these homies and got a taste of that stuff.
John is also the most famous person at the planet at the time, and he makes $1 billion off the Beatles. So he's roped up in a lot of that capital magic as well. There, a lot of these characters got two sides to them. Multiple sides. He was
Exacto.
abusive to his wife. He was abusive to his first kid. Apparently, all of this is complicated.
Exactly. And that brings, and I wanted to put that out there with artists and transformational people and these icons of history, that they are two-sided. They're human beings, and they may have done both things that we read about them. Like they might have created something special and they might have been assholes. And it might be both. It's up to us to be able to parse that.
Yeah. But you're certainly picking up on the big chaos magicians precursors. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Orson Welles, Salvador Dali, and the women that are their muses, just
Yeah.
really, really beautiful. Really, really beautiful.
It makes
Ursa
me
and Danielle
Yeah.
were,
yeah.
they had these people, surrealist masters saw in them something natural.
Absolutely.
Is
Anything
that
you
the
wanna
end of your
leave us with?
presentation?
Yeah, that's
Is
the
that
end
the
of
end of your
Beyond.
presentation? Oh,
Would
Oh,
you
okay.
count Robert Johnson as a chaos magician?
100%. Oh, there's more coming. Sun Ra. I mean, we're going to talk about. I didn't want to fit it all, and there's so many people that they're going to have their own episode.
When I look at a character like Robert Johnson, I don't necessarily consider a chaos magician because he's coming out of an established folk tradition of hoodoo, and he embraces that hoodoo tradition, and a lot of that is relating to mythology and to deeper magic. He's going to the crossroads and he's meeting Apollo, and he's beating Apollo in order to gain the skill to play the guitar. Like, this is as old as dirt, this story, right? This comes to us from the ancient Greek magical tradition. And that's what you got to do. You got to defeat Apollo in order to get the skill. If you can't defeat Apollo,
it comes from an African
alive.
tradition.
What?
That the Greeks is this later. It comes from an earlier African.
Well, there's all these iterations of it. Yeah, it's a universal thing, right? It's a everything's African. But yeah, it's a universal thing.
That's what I was going to tell you it's really hoodoo was part of it, because there was a whole thing I was going to talk about, the hoodoo queens of New Orleans, because there were certain women that came up in the 1800s up to now that are iconic in legends in New Orleans. It was hoodoo.
Madame Laveau.
Yep. Because when I was looking for chaos women of dark skin, that's what came up. And I was like, well, that's going to have to be a whole no other episode. Because we still haven't finished up on the vampires of New Orleans and the Fang Smiths and the Anne Rice stuff and all the stuff going on in Louisiana.
Yes, so Dion, I've got a. Oh, sorry. You go ahead, Leslie. I'll talk to Dion in a second. You go first.
Well, I ran into two, and I don't know if they qualify as chaos magicians as well, but there was Royal Ahmed, who wrote a book on black magic. He ran with Crowley and them, and he also told fantastical stories about where he was from. And his grandson says he was a Bon Tibetan Buddhist, and that's the left hand path of it's a more ancient, before Buddhism, Tibetan religion, and they have chaos spirits as well.
Oh yeah, Bon Po. Yeah,
And
Bon
then
Po.
I ran into Black Herman, who was a traveling magician who also practiced hoodoo and had the medicine show and all this stuff, and he he was like the first famous hoodoo guy, right?
I also,
And
this also brings up a lot of the, once we start to get into this question of these types of characters, then we also have to ask the question of, the noble Drew Ali, who founded the temple, the Moorish Temple of Science, Inc. And then we have to look at the mystical founder of the Nation of Islam. But, when you get into these characters, a lot of, there's all these accusations of fraud, all this accusation. But again, all these, they're all magicians in my mind.
Could it be
But
both?
these people would not appreciate, my point is they would not appreciate, like, my reluctance here is because that this is someone else's tradition and they would really reject that label of chaos magic. But if I'm looking at it as an outsider, there's all of the elements are there too. It's the same thing with like the guy who gave Crowley his sex magic. I'm trying to remember. He was another black hoodoo practitioner, but he's starting his own thing
Randolph,
as
P.B.
well.
Randolph. He
Thank
was Black, Asian, and he was. We don't use the word mulatto anymore,
Right.
but he was drawing from three traditions, and yeah, he's
Right.
generally known as the guy who invented sex magic. He was hung out with Abraham Lincoln. He could pass on a train if he wanted to, so he would take a train with Abraham Lincoln and advise him on things. And he was a very, very big deal. But he was a Rosicrucian, so I don't think he
Yeah,
counts
this is
as
the thing.
chaos
It's like
at all. And I
when we
was
get into
thinking
these
Udu is
characters,
actually
yeah.
kind of a stretch too, even though
Mm.
because you're integrating all these different traditions, it kind of sets the stage, the foundation for them what chaos magic grows out of, right?
Right. This is more like he's certainly connected to the characters like Alpheus Levi, which then become characters like Crowley. He's one of these transitory characters for sure. But you're right. He's operating within tradition, and we see this, right? The Martinists and the Rosicrucians, by this point in history, start incorporating everything. Alan Kardecianism, Spiritism starts to take over, and everything starts to get mashed, even in the West. So
Now,
we also have to
Kardec
contend with
didn't
that.
credit the women who
No.
he got all his information from because they didn't want to be credited. And
Right.
one had started having mental health issues and took back all her stuff, like grabbed her. She was like, I'm out of here. This is getting weird. But it's not like he was, plagiarizing them. They did not want to be named. It wasn't yet safe for them to be public about their working.
Yeah, well, you got to remember that going right back to the start of sex magic, coming from the Tibetan tradition, right, which is where it was introduced across from Asia. To this day, they still say the best way for a Tibetan Buddhist to get his magical power, right, and they do speak about Buddhism having magic, is to go and find a female shaman, a Tibetan shaman, and you rape her until death, until you take all her power, and then you have her magic power. And this is Tibetan Buddhism, which everybody thinks is peace, love, and brown rice. And it's just not. You know, it's just not. It's actually a very, very dark religion. When you compare it to Bonpo, which is, you know, been called dark by them, Bonpo's pretty light. You know, but the Tibetan, like I've got a Tibetan thigh bone trumpet over there. They've banned bringing them into Australia now because they're mostly made from the thigh bones of 15-year-old girls, right? And that's the horn you see them blowing in their ceremonies. If they run out of them, they've got to go and get them from, they're going to go get some more, but they don't say where they get them from. But it's not, they didn't die naturally at 15 years of age. You know, it's not like they went up to the chod grounds and just picked out the 15-year-old girls up there. You know, Tibetan Buddhism is dark. And I have written a book on it. Yeah, it was one of my earliest books. It was picked up by Nexus magazine. Yeah, it's horrid. You know, so when we actually see the event of sex magic coming to the West, it's actually given far more ethics than what it was by the Buddhists and the Asians over there. Right? It goes back to more the Indian tradition when it meets our Western tradition, rather than coming through that horrid Tibetan
Well, it seems like
Mahayana
most
tradition.
modern sex magic seems to be pretty much more from um, Randolph than
Yeah.
from anything actually ancient, especially not Indian. You know, because a lot of the sex magic stuff within India is truly occulted. It's truly occulted, and no one's knowing it. So we don't know. We just don't know authentically a lot of what the Tantrikas are doing, except through mythic allegory and what they tell us. We do know that the vast majority of these were men who are working with the Hijra or with young people. And there's a lot of weird, you know,
Mm,
when we're dealing with these kind of left-handed traditions, these left-handed taboo breaking magical traditions, you have the breaking of taboo. And that
mm.
means the worst kind of things that you can imagine.
Yeah,
And
there
whatever
are,
your society views as the worst thing is going to be
yeah.
broken in some
And
of these
I
traditions.
wonder too if that is particular to a certain period in history, because clearly the female shamans far predate and were very successful for much longer. What you're
Mm,
describing is already like when the Greeks start, eliminating the
mm,
Amazons. So then the Amazon tradition that the Greeks write down is partly their propaganda and partly how the Amazons had to get in that
mm.
period. Like what you're describing is definitely one religion conquering another, and seems like maybe that wasn't
Yeah.
actually going on the whole time. You know what I mean?
Oh,
No, what we see,
there's still Tibetan shaman, female shaman now. I've actually got
Yeah.
a
Oh
friend from
yeah.
Newcastle University who's done several documentaries on them, but they're still there to this day. It's still a tradition over there.
And
It is
there's
a
one video of the Dalai Lama spotting one in a large group of people and drawing her in and honoring her and taking her into
Mm,
the Bon temple that he has beneath the Buddha and his
mm, mm,
temple.
I'm personally really influenced by a lot of, religious studies and philosophy,
mm,
specifically the works of George Bataille. And one of the things that
mm,
George Bataille tried to do was understand the satanic practices that happened in Europe and the extreme taboo breaking. And he was looking at Gilles de Rais, and he was looking at a lot of that sort of stuff. And he has this idea of the accursed share and what happens when you create these extreme laws, and then you create this extreme trauma due to the violence of enforcing these laws, and then the
mm,
reaction that comes. It's basically like when you have this extreme law, you now manifest the extreme taboo. So
mhm,
in his writings, he basically says that the Christian fear of Satan manifested Satan. The black mask winds up becoming a reality as a result of just people wanting that fear and then people exploiting that fear, you know?
Okay, all right. So I have to, I will send you some links to some texts. There are actually some very good traditional Hindu texts and Bonpo texts down there on sex magic. And yeah, these are written texts by original practitioners translated from the original languages,
Yeah.
not
Okay.
just Western theories on them. We get the idea of the left-hand path from Tantra because there was a right hand and a left-hand path, right? And there
Yeah, but
are people that,
I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about the breaking. This is a human thing that we see cross-culturally. This is this accursed share idea. And this is
yeah,
something that comes out of, sociology of human experience. And that
yeah,
people, when you we
yeah,
all
there are,
people will always break these taboos. And there is this ecstasy that is found in the destruction of the self, the destruction and the breaking of the law. There is
yeah,
that relishing, and so you're going to create this reaction. That's all I'm
yeah, yeah.
saying, right?
Yeah, the Tibetan Chod
Yeah.
tradition, where they live on the graves, is all based on that. But that's
Yeah.
one. But we're only looking at one aspect of it. Like the other aspect, the right-handed path, which they do write about quite openly, is about like there is the weaving of the opposites. So they don't
Mm.
actually see anything as being wholly bad or wholly good, but it is about weaving. You've got to remember Tantra means to weave. But in the right-hand path, it's not just vegetarian; it's vegan. You drink water, not milk. There is no meat consumed. The women are very dominant in all of the tantric practices, except for some extremes on the left-hand side. So yes, these things you are talking about are there, but even by tantric practitioners,
No, well,
they're
yeah, of
considered the
course.
extremists over there.
This is
They're
the this
right
is
over there.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was always talking about the fringe, but if what I'm trying to say is that if when you are going to have these kind of practices, this
Mm,
is where they ultimately lead to, almost
mm,
always. But this is also just kind of human nature. This is kind of
mm,
very human nature.
mm.
There is this self-destructive suicidal impulse within humanity. And there is this wastefulness that comes out of this, and there's a need to deal with the
Yeah.
excess. What, in George Patai's writing, he calls this idea of the solar anus, and the excess
Yeah.
of wealth and
Yeah.
decadence. And what do we see always is when we get the Marion of extreme decadence with extreme control is when you get the worst iterations of taboo breaking.
You
That's
can
when
get
you
it. You
get
don't,
say
Yeah, but now we're
these,
these
well,
guys make
these,
Eartha Kitt and Orson Welles look
of
like
course
pussycats. You know what I mean?
we're talking about, of course, Jay, we're talking about philosophy, right? You
yeah.
know,
But it's
but
not a
anyway.
blanket. It doesn't always happen. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of maxims there. It doesn't always happen.
It's I'm
There
just
are,
I'm just
it's,
talking philosophy. I'm just talking
yeah,
philosophy. But these
yeah,
things do happen, and they've
I
happened
know. But
across history, and they will, people
And
yeah,
break
where does
taboos.
charisma fit into all this? Because,
yeah.
for example, Orson Welles was my first celebrity crush. We didn't have a
Right,
TV. I walked by a TV in a friend's house, and I'm not talking young hot Orson Welles. I'm talking old fat Orson Welles doing a wine ad, right? And
right,
I'm a kid, and I'm walking by, and I said, "Who the hell is that?"
right.
And
I'll
then
tell you something
I
unique about
couldn't figure
Orson.
it out. I went home and asked my mom, who the hell is that? She said, who the hell is that? That's Orson fucking Welles. Yeah, how did you figure that
Well,
out from the ad on TV?
well, he was a magician. Besides being an actor and producer and all the other things,
He
he
had
would
to
perform
be.
at the Magic Castle.
Yeah.
He could do tricks. He really was doing trickeration. He was a
Mm,
trickster.
yeah.
That's
Hey,
beautiful.
Dion's come back. Can I ask Dion my questions now?
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
So
question.
yeah, so Dion, I got a list of female chaos magician writers, right? And I thought that would be interesting for this discussion. I wonder if you know if any of them are black. So if I read out a couple, you could tell me if you know,
I
right?
probably
So
won't
there's,
know.
well, they got some like Jack D. Hawkins, and that's a female. I mean, that's a pretty sort of black sounding name, and she's written some of their seminal texts on it, up to 1985. She wrote the Chaonomicon and the Cardinal Rites of Chaos. She was, and there was Ivy Corvus, the occultist, but she's much later, but she edited stuff for Peter Carroll. Astrid Rowland, Nicole Lau. So that sounds, Lau is a, islander name in Australia. Yeah. Marion Pizon. I thought you'd like that one, Snappy.
Yeah, I just
Mariana
I
Pizon.
googled Jack D. Hawkins, and I've seen her
Yeah.
come up several times. She's a white lady. I believe she's from
Oh,
the
is
UK.
she?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, Deborah Lipp, Risa Dickens, Josephine McCarthy, and then there's a whole lot that have written Chaos Magic into fiction, like from the early 1960s as well. So there is a lot of female writers actually compared to the male writers that are famous for it. So there's a huge female influence in it. They just haven't got the attention, that the initial two chaos writers have got, and Robert Anton Wilson and things like that. But we also got to remember Peter Carroll's wife and Peter Carroll, they're very active on YouTube and the internet, and his wife does a lot of stuff, a lot of the writing and the commentaries as well. So, the
Well,
females actually.
yeah, like there's a lot of really powerful. What's happened with the chaos kind of scene is that you get a lot of it is done within community, and a lot of it is
Mhm,
is not seen by the public. So like Peter Carroll has his community, the initiates of Thanateros, and a lot of those
mhm,
people, all of it remains anonymous, or they're
mhm,
using nom de plumes, you know
mhm.
and so and the women are always behind the scenes, behind everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
But we have, like, I just show you, like, this is a huge list of authors and, yeah, and their accomplishments from female chaos magicians. So there's a very long list there. When if you go into the male chaos magicians, we're limited to a few that are well known. Yeah. But these women have got their names and stuff, and they're certainly out there. They're certainly out there, and they've written seminal works on it, which is good. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
So I wanted to today I was gonna continue on the presentation, and we're gonna do a deep dive into just one specific figure this time. We're gonna look at the work of Genesis P. Orridge. Genesis P. Orridge. So Genesis, are any of you guys familiar with Genesis? They're one of the more famous of the modern occultists.
I
Oh,
was psychic youth as a kid, maybe, kind of, sort of.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, the
Wow, you
Temple of
remember?
Psyche. Yeah, Topi. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they did some
Yeah,
very
yeah.
interesting stuff. They came up with really good experiments to try and increase your psychic abilities and stuff like that. So, really interesting stuff. Like, one of my favorites was you do your sigil, cut it out, and then you sticky tape it to the white noise on the TV and meditate on it. Things like that. Yeah.
I remember
Right,
that.
right. So they're one of the more influential modern occultists, and they're considered one of the real innovators of chaos magic. So while that term itself originates with Peter Carroll, they're operating simultaneously, and they're coming up with very similar ideas. You know, but Genesis is kind of a wild radical figure, in many many ways, both good and bad, and we're going to kind of get into it. So this is them when they first start into art school. So Genesis was born in 1950 in Manchester, and they were a very sickly child, and because they were so sick all the time, they spent a lot of time at home doing art, and they developed a real empowered inner world, and they attributed this to a lot of their later magic. They wind up going to art school at a very very young age. So around the age around 1964, it's called the Sully Hall School, and it was there at the Sully Hall School that they were introduced to the works of Aleister Crowley. They read Diary of a Drug Fiend, and they read, sorry, Moonchild and Confessions. And the real big thing that they took from Crowley is they thought Crowley was kind of a mixed bag. They thought he was a huge womanizing dick, but they really liked the radical freedom. They really liked the radical freedom, and they started to adopt a lot of Crowley's magical practice at this time. But they didn't really do well in school. They were ridiculously bullied. They got beaten up all the time, and they they wound up, as soon as they had an opportunity, rebelling, so and leaving. So this is a really interesting thing. So showing you how early they got their start. By 1968, he has dropped out of school, has gone to study English literature at the University of Hull, doesn't even last the first semester, changes their name to Genesis George at this time as a form of self-declaration, and they drop out and they join this radical commune called the Exploding Galaxies. And this is an image of people from Exploding Galaxies. And so this was a radical hippie commune in 1969 where people would go into radical forms of role play and self-definition. And the whole idea was every day you would be a new person, and every day you would dress up in a new costume. And so they were doing all this radical form of self-expression. And so at this time, it's when they reinvented themselves and they took on the name Genesis. But this particular commune doesn't last very long. There's a lot of interpersonal drama, and Genesis winds up leaving, and they wind up meeting at this time. They wind up being able to get in contact with their first major magical teacher. Where is that? Which is William S. Burroughs. So they're a really prolific writer at this time, Genesis, and they actually also get in touch with Brian Jones. And Brian Jones wrote them just before they died. And Genesis calls Brian Jones their muse. So it's kind of interesting is, Dion, you're talking about how Brian Jones is this magical artist, but they were also a muse. Genesis fell in love with his life and wanted to imitate his life and loved everything about Brian Jones. And Brian Jones would remain a constant theme throughout their whole life, to the point of a near love affair. Genesis would describe it. They wind up also writing to William S. Burroughs. Are any of you guys familiar with Burroughs? A really famous beat poet, radical occultist. So they're famous for writing Naked Lunch, and they popularized in the 50s the cut up. And they would collaborate often with this particular character, Brian Geisen, who was another magical occultist. And Geisen is credited, he invented this magical machine where you would put like a strobe light on your turntable, and it would cause, the spinning light would cause you to hallucinate. But these guys were radical collaborators and lovers. And Genesis really gets they didn't come up with the idea of the Pandragine, but they came up with this idea of the third mind. So William Burroughs and Brian Geisen, while they were together, they became a third mind and would collaborate in most radical ways. So they would cut up each other's poetry, cut up each other's works, and rewrite each other's works. And they would try to operate as a single individual. And Jen got to meet these two, got to work with them and talk to them, and maintained a pen pal relationship with William Burroughs till he died. So really, really, really close kind of relationship. And this kind of idea of the cut up becomes the central defining thing for Genesis. She decides, or they decide that they're going to use this to cut up every aspect of their life, that they're going to begin to radically transform everything. So the next big thing that happens is they wind up meeting this beautiful woman, Cozy Fanny Tutti. And Cozy Fanny Tutti is a radical artist and an incredible musician and creator in her own right. And together they wind up creating this amazing outsider theater company called Coom Transmission. And Coom Transmission was all about bringing sex and breaking taboo, because at this time, England was so uptight and was so closed-minded. Like, this was before punk rock. This is right on the cusp of punk rock. And they were really trying to shatter a lot of the uptight British taboos of the time by bringing sex into public, by bringing, radical confrontations into public. So here's some of their outfits and shocking scenes that they would do in performance. So those two become lovers and radical collaborators, and Coombe is this huge, big deal. At the same time, though, they don't just settle for the theater. They realize that at the same time that they're trying to they're trying to get people to watch and to experience their art, and they're working in the same places that you're starting to see the birth of punk rock. So you're starting to see the early pub rock bands and the birth of youth culture. And so Jen and Cozy were so interested in that. But at the same time, they really didn't like rock music. They didn't really, because they thought it was chauvinistic. They thought it was, gross. They wanted to do what the youth were doing, but they wanted to challenge what came before them. And so eventually they come together and they create this incredible band called Throbbing Gristle. And Throbbing Gristle is considered to be the first industrial band. So unlike punk rock, which still was in the traditional idea of a band where you would have drums, you'd have guitars, you'd have bass and a singer, they rejected all of that. And the idea was you just played what you felt. And they would incorporate a lot of early tape recording and early what became electronic music, samples and drum sounds and early electronic instrumentation. And so this becomes like a huge radical thing. People don't know how to take this at all. While this is going on, though, Cozy and Genesis are still doing Coom. And this is Cozy on the cover of one of their theater performances called Prostitution. And this particular one causes a massive problem. So this particular one, it it featured pornographic images, used tampons, prostitute flyers and stuff, and they wind up getting written up by these mother groups and by these radical conservative groups, and they famously call them the wreckers of civilization. The wreckers of civilization. And this is something that Jen and Cozy would like wear as a badge for the rest of their life. And they were in the same time they're called wreckers of civilization, so are the Sex Pistols. So Coombe is blowing up right at the same time that the Sex Pistols are blowing up. So they're right at the same spark of punk rock, right? 1976, So what ends up happening with these two, though, is at this time, they both get into Austin Osman Spar, Cozy and Fanny Tutti. And they really start bringing in the radical magic. And at this time, Cozy has a lot so we have to talk about the elephant in the room here. So Genesis is clearly this incredible magical person who inspires people. But she's also someone who preys on teenagers. She's someone who preys on a lot of women, and she does a lot of wild ego stuff. She almost kills Cozy Fanny Tutti at this time with a brick, throwing a brick out a window. She rapes Cozy Fanny Tutti, forces her to have unprotected sex. A lot of wild stuff that Cozy brings up. And it's a really intense radical time, and Jen gets into the heights of all this magic and transformation, and eventually Cozy and Jen part ways, and this is when Jen winds up starting their next major project, which is Psychic TV. So the whole idea behind Psychic TV is to bring in like acid house and techno into their more radical industrial stuff that they were doing earlier, and to incorporate a lot of magic ritual and magic songs. So by the time you get to Psychic TV, everything now is a magical rite. Everything is chaos magic. And Jen has gone full into it in the most radical ways imaginable. And out of this comes their fan club. So it originally starts as a fan club. The Temple of Psychic Youth was you could sign up and join the fan club. And they would send you letters, and they would send you magical pamphlets telling you little magical tricks that you could do. And then all of a sudden, though, it started to evolve. It became community organizations that started to set up little, youth got together and set up their own chapters all around the world. And they started forming punk houses, and they started having radical communes. And within a couple years, it went from being something small to something worldwide and radical. People would send them letters of their highest desires in order to do these magical rites and stuff. So I wanted to. So one character we have to talk about at this time is Paula Peorich, which is Genesis's first wife, and Genesis meets her at 16, gets her to join their band, winds up marrying them. They wind up having 2 kids together, and she really has a horrible time with Genesis and says a lot of radical things about Jen. Jen kind of manipulated her at a very young age. Yeah. But she was also deeply involved in a lot of this stuff with Jen too. She participated in everything as a largely willing person too. It's complicated from her standpoint. She doesn't go by Paula anymore. She now goes by the name. What did I wrote it down here? To Alora Odell. She changed her name to Alora Odell. She was originally Paula Booking, and at this time they're really getting into this Temple of Psychic Youth. It's exploding, and they're doing all these radical rites, really transforming kind of the world at this time, touring the world. I wanted to show you guys some of the sex magic because this is going to play into what winds up happening to Genesis. So she's getting all these people in her fan base to do these magical rites and to send her their letters. And there is accusations, like there's a journalist I found who said that she witnessed Paula and Jen opening these letters, which were meant to be private and burned. The idea is you'd send them to Jen and then they would burn them in a rite, but they were opening them, looking at them, and laughing at people, So some weird stuff going on at this time. It's wild. So I'm going to read you though the sigil sex magic that they're practicing. Okay, and this comes from the Psychic Bible that that later gets compiled based on the writings at this time by Jen's student Jason Louv. So let me just find, where did I put that? Okay, so it says, the ritual is performed alone on the 23rd day of any month, beginning at exactly 2300 hours. The number 23 holds specific significance in the Topi cosmology. A private space free of interruption, candlelight only if possible, performed naked. Okay, so the 23 is connecting it to Robert Anton Wilson, as we discussed last time. Identify and write the true desire. Before anything physical, the sigilizer must deliberate carefully on what is truly wanted, not what they think they should want, not what would impress others. Genesis insisted on total honesty. It is essential to be completely honest with yourself. The desire is written in full on a piece of paper. This is the sigil paper. A few drops of spit fall into the paper, the first part of the 3 body fluids that will anoint and concentrate it. In the neurological model Topi developed, spit along with blood corresponds to the limbic system, the seat of emotion and long-term memory. A few drops of blood, a small quantity of blood drawn with a clean, sharp instrument applied to the paper. Common sense and hygiene are emphasized. Blood contains DNA, what Topi called the best magical link possible to one's own self. A perfect holographic splinter containing everything necessary to create yourself anew. So, is the temple's term for sexual fluid, semen, or vaginal lubrication. The sigilizer brings themselves to orgasm while concentrating simultaneously on the written desire and on the idea of the temple. At the moment of climax, understood as the moment of maximum openness in the unconscious. The fluid touches the paper in the brain model of corresponds to the automatic nervous system, the deepest, most primitive layer. So then the hair. Head hair or pubic hair is attached. A lock of head hair, some pubic hair are fixed to the sigil paper, operating on Sir James Fraser's law of contagion, the principle that a fragment of something can serve as a magical link to its source. The hair reinforces the DNA already present. The paper now contains the practitioner's complete biological signature. Left overnight in a safe place. The complete sigil paper dries overnight. The practitioner's name need not be attached. All submissions were received anonymously and stored in a locked vault at Topi headquarters, at an undisclosed location somewhere in the world. Sent to the temple and the cycle repeats. The sigil paper is mailed to Topi. The practitioner receives encouragement and directions for the following month's ritual. 23 consecutive monthly sigils. Qualified one as a full initiate of the temple. The physical act of sending was itself understood as a gesture, releasing the desire of the unconscious, could work on it without interference from the conscious will. So Jen was getting thousands of teenagers from all over the world to send her biological data and their deepest desires, right? This caused a huge public outcry and led to a bit of a satanic panic. And it wound up forcing Jen to move to California. And she moved to California, and this is where things get really messy. She has a complete falling out with Paula, and she abandons Paula in California. And she doesn't pay child support. She cut Paula at this time is only 28 years old. She's with 2 kids. Her whole income, her whole world is connected to the band that she's in with Jen. And now Jen has cut her off and also cut her off from the person that got their visa, told her not to work with her, according to her. So she was basically abandoned in America with nothing and had to figure out a way to make it for herself. And she did, but that's what Jen did to her. So wild stuff. But at this time, this is when Jen also meets Lady J, and where the magic takes on a whole new level. So with Lady J, Genesis claims to, and so does Lady J. They both say that they met their true soulmate, and they fall in love and they get married. And this is all happening in the mid 90s. So the exile from England happened in 92, and they start beginning the Pandragine project in 93 and get married in 95. So the Pandragine project is they try to become a single entity. As I told you about, Jen was really inspired by Brian Geisen and William Burroughs' Third Mind, and she wanted to take it even further to become one being. And this was about healing the wounds of separation from Adam and Eve, and about bringing us into greater consciousness and harmony and all this wild kind of magic. So her and Lady J fall in love, and they begin this radical love affair. When they get married, it's said that they do this radical magical ritual and stay locked together for 23 hours straight. You know, with her fixation on 23 again. You know. And after this, basically, what ends up happening is the Lady J, well, she winds up before, so they wind up doing a lot of these magical surgeries in order for the two of them to start looking like one another. And this is when Jen becomes fully trans and starts to look a lot like Lady J. And they reform Throbbing Gristle at this time, but by 2007, Lady J dies of congenital heart disease. So she was always sickly her whole life. And yeah, she dies of illness. But Jen continues, the Pandragine project continues to try to emulate J and refers to themselves as a single entity going forward. And she believes that Lady J is still in her person. By 2017, The Psychic Bible is completed, which is her magnum opus. It's the compilation of Jen's writings from her whole period, as assembled by Jason Louv, as well as a lot of other people who are connected to Topi, the Temple of Psychic Youth. But yeah, I have some magical quotes here that we can talk about so that we can get a perspective of understanding for Jen. But what do you guys think so far, now that I've given you kind of an overview of their magic and their project? Yeah, a wild character.
Yeah. I was aware of the letters that were being sent to them. And I guess most of the people I spoke to, even the ones that did it, were just, they, I know, they sort of expected it to be laughed at. They didn't take it too seriously. And the people that did take it extremely seriously, other people would laugh at them as well. It was considered, I think, contemporarily as a big experiment that you had to be humorous about, right? And if it worked great. But yeah, just it was like an experimental experience. I had a dear friend who's passed away, Barrington, and quite a remarkable man, but he was very much involved in the Temple of Psychic Youth in Australia. And certainly him being quite high up in it, he just never took it too seriously. So it was one of those sorts of things that I think people from outside of it were horrified if they thought it was 100% serious. I think the people inside of it all took it with a grain of humor and enjoyed the radicalness of it as a big joke against actual magic, against magical societies, against the Masons, it was a real anti-disestablishmentarianism thing, but it was like an in-joke you had to be in to understand. It wasn't seen, I don't think, by the people who were doing it as incredibly serious. It's like, oh, look at them,
I
they're
think
doing this.
it gets complicated because
Yeah,
there's clearly people who take this deadly serious, and there's people who've dedicated themselves to this magical path and treat Jen like a guru. And there were many young people who got hurt in this. And this is part of the reason why Topi falls apart and Genesis abandons it, because it
yeah,
does become a bit culty, you know, even more so than they intended. I think they had the best intentions. And I do
yeah.
think that the vast majority of people enjoyed the experiences, and I think a lot of this to me, it's punk rock, it's radical youth,
Mm,
trying to be free and live a radical life,
mhm.
and youth are messy and wild and ridiculous. But Jen certainly fell into a lot of that egomania and wildness. And yeah, you know, I'm so influenced by their writing. Their writing came to me at a time when, like, they were the first non-binary person I ever heard of,
Yeah.
and they were so boundary pushing, and they're a great writer. But we
Mm,
also have to just be honest about the person, and
mm.
and I know we disagree on Crowley, and but I feel the same way about Jen as I feel about Crowley. Great writers, but people, not so much.
Yeah. Here,
Complicated to say the least. You
yeah,
know,
the people. One thing about humans is humans will muck up with an F. They will muck up, and they do. But yeah, I mean, I'm only telling you what I felt at the time, and at the time that people were doing, because I was doing my own magical stuff at the time, and I used to look at them and go, "Isn't it great that these guys don't take themselves too seriously?" I actually read when I was reading their stuff, and I've got a couple of the Temple of Psychic Youth pamphlets over there somewhere. But it really does tell you not to take yourself too seriously, I think. And I think yeah, of course, some people are going to miss that, but I think that's what a lot of Crowley stuff people don't get either. There's a lot of stuff in there he tells people not to take too seriously. Yeah.
it, it's wild, but I can also,
Yeah.
it's like, my thing too. It's like, as much as I look at this and like I have a background in the magic and I've read all this stuff and I can
Mm.
respect where they're coming from, but can you imagine you're a mom and your kid is sending their spit and their blood and their vaginal secretions to a rock band with
Mm.
enclosed with their deepest desires? You know, like I can understand why it caused a public outcry. I mean, I
Yeah,
do think it's a radical piece of art and it's really interesting, but
but
it's
it's
also
very
like, you guys are wild. Like, what did you expect to happen? You
well,
know?
the Scientologists, just in a slightly different context, do exactly the same thing. So it's only a slightly different reframing of it, but they do the same thing. And I
Yeah.
remember, I'm old enough to remember when the Rosicrucians didn't sign them. Like when you go into it, it wasn't just red ink you signed that with. That you were supposed to sign that with your blood as well. So it was all deep stuff. And I must admit, Barrington was a Martinist. He was you know, um, he was a Thelamite. He was Golden Dawn. He was everything all at the same time, as well as one of the heads of the Temple of Psychic Youth in Australia. But he had a great sense of humor. He was in a experimental rock band himself, and he actually contributed a lot to early Nick Cave stuff. So, yeah,
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 I mean, it's all interesting, right? And people take all kinds of things from these different things, you know.
yeah,
Uh, and yeah, it's just complicated when people start forming, you know, you start forming your own religious movements and you're trying to influence young people, and then this is things get out of hand, you know. At the same time, I admire the idea, right, trying to reform the androgyne and heal like it's beautiful and it's ugly at the same time.
yeah.
You know,
Well,
it's
well, you and
wild,
I
man.
both have like an admiration for Dr. Ammon.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people again confuse his theatre, and they get all upset about his theatre performances that he does on the internet with his actual teachings. His actual teaching, and the Greek and wanting people to empower themselves is great.
Mm.
How seriously do we take the theatre?
Yeah,
The
I
theatre
think
is
we
the
need to
theatre.
take satire deadly serious, though. I think that satire
I
gets
love
people
it. I love
killed.
it. Can I
Yeah,
please
just
quote you
because
on
it's
that?
absurd doesn't mean it's not serious. And like
I
the
think
thing I
I
love
just
about Ammon is because at the heart of what he's saying is something real. He's trying to
yeah,
reinstate the Great Mother. He's trying to bring about justice, and that's and real satire has bite, real satire, and you got to be accountable for your stuff. And
yeah,
so this is what I look at with Jen. You got to be accountable for what you put out. And
yeah.
yeah, it's complicated. It's complicated.
But you've just
But
given me my quote of the week. I have to be deadly serious about satire. I'm going to use
yeah,
that. I'm sure. Hopefully, I have your permission. I will quote you.
absolutely. I mean, when you get into the reality of satire, it's serious magic that killed people. That's what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Out of the great mother fertility tradition, right?
mm,
To bring people back to reality, to call them to the festivals, you know?
yeah.
Um, we've got Hippanax. We've got Hippanax, and he's murdering people like a little troll man. Like
Well,
anyway.
I,
and with the Orson Welles radio show, he wasn't trying to kill anyone, clearly,
No.
but
no.
you said people died. So I wondered how they died. Were these suicides or car accidents or
Yeah.
what
I'm not
mayhem
too yeah.
ensued from this theatrical performance?
I
Oh,
think it's
there were.
because of the mayhem and the panic, people
Yeah.
driving and trying to flee and
It
stuff
was a
and
car
yeah.
accident. Huh?
And they were
There
like
was
out shooting water towers, thinking they were aliens, and some people got accidentally shot and things like that. So, yeah, yeah. But Snappy, there's been a theme that's been happening this week with a few people I've been trying to help, and there's been they've been performing satire in their life, and then other people are throwing insults at them, and the people are taking it too personally. It's like if you're out there doing satire and somebody throws an insult at you, like I find I'm very hard to insult. You know, I tend to look at the person who's insulting me and laugh at them. Like, I understand what their insecurity is that's coming up and why they're doing it. But I think 90% of the problems in this world at the moment is because people are taking insults way too seriously and not getting the satire that is involved.
But
I
that's part of
really
the satire, I would argue. That's part of the
exactly,
satire. To be a victim
exactly.
is an empowering ritual. And you see this, okay? Look at far right political actors and how they use satire, right? What
Oh,
do? They yell and they scream about how everyone is out to get them, and they'll mock everyone else. But as soon as you mock them in any way, it's the end of the world because
I
it's all
know,
part of the show. It's all part of
I
the show.
know.
Ignore it, you
I
know?
know, exactly. And how ridiculous are they? I mean, politics is the biggest laugh. I mean, Australia has ridiculous politics. When I work overseas, go to Asia, they just go, "You're from Australia? Oh, we watch your parliament and laugh." Politics is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. How can people not laugh at it? The fact that people want to kill each other over politics is the saddest satire of them all. That's the biggest joke of the day. You want to kill yourself or kill other people over something that's so freaking ridiculous. You know, get the joke and get a sense of humor and laugh at it, guys. Really. You know, and this lack of sense of humor and like, you've triggered me. I am offended. Well, guess what? You're allowed to be triggered and offended, especially if you don't have a sense of humor.
This is
Go
But
also
these
this
are
is
when the
also how you
stakes are
press.
very low. I mean,
Mm.
there's World War III happening. Politics is hardly a joke.
Exactly. And we have to take the satire deadly seriously because what has the satire been able to do? We witnessed this in Canada and the United States where these disingenuous actors would say, it's you guys are just crying foul. You're just saying it's just locker room talk. I just
This is
grab
what
him by the
abusers
pussy.
say all the
It's just
time. They
satire.
say they
It's
say
just a
you're
joke.
overreacting.
Yeah.
They say I was just kidding. How could you take it? That is the way abusers act all the time.
But
So
and
how are you
that's also how you
supposed to
move the Overton
distinguish?
window. I'm not
Right?
a
oh,
Nazi. It's a joke. It's
Yeah,
just a
I mean,
hand
fuck. I
signal.
mean, all this
oh,
stuff.
oh,
It gets
oh,
it gets really heavy.
oh,
But
did
this
I
is the
trigger
thing. It's
something
all
here?
performance. No, I
No,
I mean
okay.
it's
I
it's
know, no,
it's
no, I'm
No,
also
joking.
something
I'm
like
actually,
joking.
Leah.
But can you imagine? Like, I know we're on the whole fact that the world is on the brink of a world war over something
it's
so
happening.
frigging stupid. I mean, imagine if everybody just started laughing at the causes and stood around and you banish your demons with laughter. People can't
What is the
stand being
cause
laughed at.
though? The cause is it's
Have
people
you seen the
trying to
way
manifest their
Iran
will.
is trolling the United States with cartoons and satirical rap songs and actually announcing Donald Trump, you're fired? I think that's the language that you can understand. There is counter satire,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, why
also
would they?
incredibly horrifying, and
Yeah.
that is part of it.
Now, hasn't the
Yeah.
It's
United States learned after Vietnam not to get involved in somebody else's land war yet? It's
that
and
that's
and
they're
They
look,
don't
trying
even
to.
understand that we're starting to move. Okay, the whole thing here is about controlling the oil, clearly, right?
exactly,
And it's
exactly,
just such backwards, stupid thinking. Like the
They're burning
world
exactly,
the oil.
in a
and
thousand
and the
years from
whole
now, we're not going to be talking about oil as a fuel. It would be stupid, you
No,
know?
I know,
next year we could go zero petroleum
Right.
next year if we wanted to.
You're
I
right.
know,
You're right.
and the whole Middle Eastern conflict, guys, Palestine and Israel, you can't agree on it, right? Only thing you agree on is that this is sacred territory. Good. Let's take the territory off both of you, give it to God. And if you misbehave, you leave. You know, it's a ridiculous situation. It's so holy. Let's behave in the most unholy way about this land. That is ridiculous. You
It's
know,
this classic
it,
thing of nation states divide and conquer. As soon as you have things divided by race or religion or ethnicity, now you got a problem. And it's
Uh-huh.
like 2 states, 3 states, 1 state, no state, no
But this
state,
this is
right?
the
Like, but it's all ridiculous.
it's all according to, it's not a malfunction. This is on
No,
purpose.
it's all on
Yeah.
purpose. It's all it's
Yeah.
always been, right? It's
Yeah.
what I learned this in my degree when I was studying post-colonial studies and religious studies. It's how the British Empire and then the American Empire is a continuation of the British Empire. It never ended.
Mm,
It just
With some
switched hands.
French Masonic stuff thrown in. Yeah.
mm.
Some
Yeah.
French Masonic stuff, some in, and some people from the Third Reich were allowed to stay on top as well, But this is the thing, like that empire
Mm.
never ended. It just shifted hands, and the
Yeah.
process has always been the same. And we're like, what I learned in India, and they tell you this in their texts. We're going to create all of these myths in order to displace people, okay? The northern Indians are not from there. They're Aryans. They're actually from somewhere else. The southern Indians, they're not from southern India. They're actually from Lemuria. So they're out there in the middle of the ocean. And you do this everywhere. It's like when they went to America. The Native Americans aren't from North America. They're actually the lost tribe of Israel. It sounds ridiculous, but that also started a whole bloody religion. And look what we're
That's
doing
true.
right now. We're fighting
Ridiculous.
over the same ridiculous thing, the Bible, arguing
Yeah.
that it's their God-given land. It might as well be the same stories I told you.
I know. And the
It's no
Bible and
freaking different.
we can be not only petrol free by next year, we could also be Bible free by next year, which is,
Oh,
if we
I'd
all
like to be
decided how
Bible
we could.
free by next week. If no one
Yeah.
ever mentions the Bible to
It's
me
the most
again, I'll be
ridiculous
happy.
book on the planet. It is the most ridiculous book
And
on the
there are
planet.
so many books. Like, look at all the books behind Shay there. There are a
Yeah.
million bajillion books we could talk about. Just never bring that Bible bullshit around me again. Oh my God.
Right?
No,
Right?
I
What
know.
the
This is my
fuck?
only this is my only thing. Like I love Ammon, but it's like I struggle sometimes with watching this show because of, not because of the sources,
But it's vital. It's vital that he
Oh
deconstruct
no, it's
this
right.
for
It's
people who don't know.
absolutely no criticism.
I'm not his
Exactly.
audience, you know.
Exactly.
And I do faithfully pick through for when he starts talking about her. Because when he
Yeah,
talks
yeah.
about her, that's church for me. Okay.
I'm still watching it
And the
every
rest
time.
though is that he's doing political activism there, you know.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's deadly
But it's
serious
just,
about it, and he's fucking hilarious. And that's the
mm,
gravity that it
yeah.
holds. Like if it's just Benny Hill, you know, and you're just, oh, we're just making fun of each other and blah blah blah. It doesn't have any gravity to it, and it's not satire, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. You better, if our listeners try one experiment, one Temple of Psychic Youth experiment this week. If somebody tries to insult you, laugh at it, right? Because one, it will banish the demon out of you. You won't feel offended. You won't feel disempowered by this person who is trying to disempower you and
Well,
get a rise and get
I
a
just like
reaction.
to agree with
And
them. That's the
yeah,
path, Aphrodite path, is just take it, you know what I mean? It's, of
yeah,
course, you know, you should actually probably talk to my most recent ex if you want to know all the bad things about me.
yeah,
You know,
that's
that's
right.
just a
Yeah,
surface
yeah.
one.
Yeah, if you think I'm a CUNT, wait till you see me on my bad day. You know.
The best thing you can take, I think, from people, from all the chaos magicians, is just that understanding that you can cut up your life, that you can reject the socialization of your society, of your family, of the books and media you consume, and you can become aware of your own belief system, of your own reality tunnel, and you can play within that driver's seat. Now the problem with this is, and this has been my big issue, and I've done the deep dive into a lot, and I know a lot of people find depth, but for me, the big issue with the chaos magic is they don't explore the aspect that I'm interested in. They don't connect
Right.
you to that beyond.
Well,
You know,
that's how I kind of felt at the end with those UC Berkeley guys. It's like, well, what the hell? These guys don't believe in a damn thing, and they don't need to either. You know what I
so
mean?
I'm in control of my ego now. What?
Lacking in gravitas in a major way, you know. And so
Yeah.
Yeah,
the impact is what it is, you know. superficial.
Laverna, Eris, they were throwing the golden apple to show how ridiculous the gods were. You know, you think you're better than me, you're not going to invite me? Let me throw a golden apple in and I'll show you how much chaos there is in the world. You know, and that's what it's about. You know, she was laughing at the gods, you know, and showed how ridiculous they were. It's not about, you know, your existential place in the world. The whole basis of chaos magic is to shake things up by showing you how ridiculous they are, right? And to destroy what is ridiculous. Right. And that's what she did. I mean, Eris eventually, you know, she laid that way for Dionysus to be the successor of Zeus because of the golden apple, you know, and this is what chaos magic is about. Its use is to destroy, right? And it can be used, you know, like you're saying, it can be used to shake up governments. It can be used to shake up a system that is there, but it is done by exposing the you know, what did you say again about how we've got to take satire deadly seriously by taking that satire, exposing that they are taking their own satire deadly seriously,
You know,
right? And
like,
it's going to be their own downfall. You know, that's
well,
what it's about.
yeah, you know, I look at someone like Jen, and what really always, like, the thing that really drew me to her work was that idea of healing the wounds of separation, bringing the genders together, bringing people together, coming into this holistic understanding, this kind of magic. But reading her back now, you know, after having done a lot more magical work, you know,
Mm,
she's her idea is good, but she doesn't connect to the great Mother Earth. It's like, you want to heal the wounds of separation. Well, we got
mm.
to begin with the earth under our feet and recognizing that that's the foundation. And
Yeah,
she does in a sense, but also doesn't. Not in the way that I think we need to be doing. Like, when I say heal the earth, we need to be actively doing the work to bring our earth back into natural alignment, you know, to ensure that
mm.
life gets to continue. And that's the talk we need to be having, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
not
yeah.
ego talk, you know.
No, no, no. And it's the result of chaos magic as well. I mean, Jen made a muck of her life. She did. You know, it wasn't a happy life. There's only one photo I've ever seen of her where she looks even slightly happy. And it was a messed up
I don't
life.
know. I think
She created chaos and lived in chaos and died in chaos. And
I'm going to
everybody
push
around her
back
was
on
in.
that entirely, because I just read
Good. I
her,
love it when you do.
you know, I just
Go for it.
finished her I read her incredible biography, which is called Non-Binary, and she had
Yeah.
radical love with Lady J. And she was
Yeah.
like she had a radical, beautiful love in life, and she loved her life. The big issues with her is that she fell into selfishness and, you know, rock star stuff and too much drugs. This, you
That's
know,
what I was gonna say. Like all these
Chaos.
guys, like
yeah.
Chaos.
with our modern lens, we have a different modern lens around body fluid exchange, for example.
Mm.
And we also have a more sober reality. Like these are not new things, you know. We're like, oh, what part of that did you not see coming? But they didn't, because it was actually new that these substances were flooding the streets in their form that they were in, and it could be said that they didn't know that it was going to wreck
Oh,
their life, you know. And we
Yeah.
know that now. It's a
Yeah.
no-brainer. Like, duh. The cocaine makes you feel a lot sexier than you
Yeah, but
actually look to sober
ecstasy, for
people,
example,
and it only works
we
on
didn't know
young
back then.
people. That kind of ego thing, you know, the mask, you know. And so yeah, then you're stuck. If you really want to impress someone real bad, you're kind of stuck with young damaged people.
yeah.
And that's seen through a modern lens, that these things were not even being discussed back then.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
Right.
tell
in
you,
many places the
I,
age of consent was 15, and it still is some places.
yeah.
Yeah.
Tell you a very funny quick story about body fluids. I was at a conference and I was doing a talk at a conference. And this lady came up and she introduced me to her daughter. And she said, here's my lovely daughter, and beautiful, gorgeous little girl. And she said, oh, and her name's Amrita. And I just looked a bit stunned for a while, because the three of us probably know that the word Amrita is the Hindu word for vaginal fluid. And so she's introducing me to this beautiful little girl as vaginal fluid. And I was like, I paused for a second and I'm thinking, should I tell her or shouldn't I tell her? And then the woman said, "What's that weird look on your face?" And I'm going, she goes, "No, go on, tell me." And I went, okay, the universe is saying to tell her. And so I told her what she's named her daughter after.
Well, she named
And
it. Okay, we have to push back a bit because it's the churning of the ocean of milk you know, and yeah, you could say that it's the vaginal secretions of the Great Mother, but no, most in Hindus are gonna flip out on you and would call you would go
no,
absolutely
you
insane.
can look it up on the Hindu dictionary, which is what I actually had to show her. It's the Hindu dictionary online
Yeah,
defines
it's
it
the
as
nectar of immortality,
female
and it
vag.
comes to us from the churning of the ocean of milk, Amrita. And yeah, you can
that-
equate it with that, but that's not how they view it. It's the same way where if you're looking at a lingam and you tell an Indian that it's the penis and the vagina, some of these people get very upset with you. Because yeah, in one sense it is, but it's not just that. It's not
yeah,
just that. It's also
I
the
know.
dew of the moon that causes you to achieve absolute
We had no
immortality.
idea of any of that. She just picked it because she thought it sounded nice. She'd heard it once.
Right.
But if you do look it up in the Hindu dictionary online, it defines it as female vaginal fluid, which is what
Um,
we did. Which was I
what
did.
what
I had to show her
dictionary?
that.
What
Oh,
Hindu?
it's,
What dictionary online are you looking at? Because we can
have a
look
look. Look
wisdom.
it up now.
Yeah. Okay. It's a Okay, so let me bring this up on the screen so that we can all see.
Yeah, I'll do it here too.
So, okay, where's my thing here? How do I do that? Oh, there it is. Okay, share. All right. Okay, so if we come here and we look here, let me just zoom in a bit. All right, Amrita is a significant concept, particularly denoting the essence of immortality across various spiritual traditions, okay, including Buddhism, Hinduism, and Ayurveda. It symbolizes divine nectar or ambrosia, representing spiritual nourishment, eternal life, and ultimate truth. Amrita is sought after by the gods by the churning of the ocean, right? It refers to
Yeah,
a potent herb.
but that's mythology. That's not a word definition.
This is the
No,
wisdom library. This is the Sanskrit dictionary of the
all
wisdom
right.
library. This is one
I
of the key
The
sources.
way have heard the word used is that it's the taste of honey in the back of your throat when enlightenment falls.
Yeah,
Towards the back.
exactly. Right? Exactly. It's more of a concept than any literal thing.
And
You know?
Amachi's full name is Mata Amrita Anandamayi, and I don't think that's what she means by that
Right.
name.
Exactly. You know? Um there's a dozen or so definitions here, right? Yeah. But anyway, it's all good,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The remnant of sacrifices, right? We can, the essence of the elixir of life, right? It's related to the soma and the churning of the ocean of its milk. But yeah.
yeah. I can see those other definitions there. I can, but the one that I looked up when we brought it up was it was the first one that came up at the time online. It definitely had nothing to do with immortality. I know the story about churning the ocean of milk, but it is defined, I'll find it and I'll put it up. But it was the only one that came up at the time, and it was female vaginal fluids. I had the sacred secretion of the female vaginal fluid. Anyway, so she still hates, anyway, getting back to the whole thing, which was about bodily fluids and chaos. This woman couldn't, she absolutely hates me to this day. And she still talks about going to this lecture with me and coming up afterwards to tell me what a good lecture it was. But she asked the question. And then I actually had my iPad with me, which I'd been using in the talk, and I turned it around and showed her. She tried to get me thrown out of the conference because I had shown her this definition, and the woman who ran the conference went, well, there's the definition on the iPad. Why are you trying to get her thrown out for what you've done? And this is what I'm trying to say is that sometimes when something offends us, it's usually something that we've done, and we have this huge reaction against this other person, which I've done a few times today on this podcast. But the whole thing is, if she got like, when she was looking at this, if she went, maybe I better look at some Depol for my daughter pretty quick, rather than trying to go, oh my God, this other person is horrible for pointing out to me that I might have done something a little bit ridiculous here. So she got really upset about that and still hates me to this day. And it pops up online every now and again that she met this woman at this conference that was rude enough to give her the Sanskrit definition of what her daughter's name meant. So when you look at the whole situation, yeah, it was a funny, ridiculous situation, but she couldn't see it that way and probably never will. Yeah.
Right.
It's all about framing and perspective. Can we laugh at ourselves is the big question. If we can laugh at ourselves, we can banish our demons with laughter. If we can't laugh at
Except when,
ourselves.
but it's not just that either, right? There is the time when there are these radical abusers who are trying to push the Overton window and exploit you and trigger you. And they're purposely doing this. Like, I just went through, decades of this, watching this in the media as the entire media landscape got weaponized against people like me for the purposes of this, creating an other. And half the time it's not even a reality. You go to a high school and you pick on a high school kid and you ask them or you go to a university, you pick on the blue-haired girl and you ask her to try and defend herself to a proper, like, pundit. Anyway, my point is it's just that, like, it's not just about being triggered and whatnot. So much of this is like, what if someone's out to hurt you? What if their purpose is to be a dick and they really just want to hurt you? And
There's
what
a
if they're
difference.
out to be me? No, like, this is what I'm asking you though. What if I am lying and my purpose is to call you and hurt you?
Yes, you don't
That's
have to be
bullying.
hurt. Sticks and stones.
No,
You
no, no, no,
don't
no,
have to
no.
be hurt.
You're missing. No, Shay. Sometimes people are out to hurt you and ruin your name and ruin your reputation. And no matter what you do, react or not, they're doing this to you and they're out to get you.
I'm very aware of that situation, and it has happened to me many times, and I'm still smiling, and I'm successful, and I'm living in a peaceful place, and they will always be dicks. It doesn't mean I have to be, I am
Yeah,
happy,
I refuse
people
to
have
just play
tried,
that game either. This is also just,
but
it
I'm not
reminds me of
destroyed.
just, yeah.
I'm not destroyed. I'm not destroyed by what they're
No,
doing,
I
and I
don't think
won't
you're
allow
destroyed
myself to
either.
be destroyed.
No, but
I'm
I also
happy.
don't think it's wrong to tell people to F off if they're being rude and they're bullying me. In fact, I think my whole life has taught me that if you don't punch the bully in the face, then they continue to push you and push you and push you and push you until they severely hurt you. And that has
Uh,
been just my reality again and again and again and again. And so
but
I refuse to be caught off guard without power. No, you're going to come at me with that kind of nonsense and I'm going to put you in your place. And that's how
well,
it
that's
has
what
to
they.
be. And I refuse
Well,
to give up my power for the
but
sake of
that's what.
kindness to bigotry,
Oh, no, no, no. Believe me, I don't believe in forgiving easily, and I don't believe in giving up to bigotry. But the
Mm.
reaction that you're talking about is the reaction that they want, because then they're in control.
No, they're
Right?
not in control. Sometimes I punch them in the face and they leave me alone. That's been my reality. You know what happens is that you make the clown look like the clown. Here's the thing, if you continue to put up with it, then they get to look like the powerful person. Even when you walk away, they can sell that to their friends. They can come back another day. There was no consequence. There needs to be consequence with some of these people. When you're dealing with a real bully, that's all they understand. And again, I've had to learn this. I was always the kind of person who wouldn't until I got
Right.
pushed to the point where I had to. And then it stopped. And then it never
Yeah.
stopped again. And I will
I
never, ever tell people to put up with that kind of nonsense. Sometimes you
Yes.
got to push back. You just have to.
yeah, I'm a
That's
highly trained.
Athena. Athena energy. Justice demands what we fight for justice. And I won't fall to this like screw Gandhi, screw that Martin Luther King nonsense, screw all of this white privilege bullcrap. Give me the Molotov cocktail. Serious. Okay, where's the guillotine? Like Boots Riley over here. Okay. anyway, I
Yeah,
love you,
but
Shay.
you
I
know
love you.
what? I love these discussions. They're great. But you gotta understand that Gandhi did get the British out of India by
No,
making
I
them
studied that
ridiculous.
history and went there. He did not. He was one small player. You know what got the people out? The Indians. And you know what
Yeah.
most Indian people did? Fought back.
Yeah, they
They
did.
fought
Yeah.
back. Lots of people died. Lots of people refused to work.
Yeah.
Yet
Yeah.
Gandhi was an important figure, and I give him all the credit in the world. But it wasn't nonviolence that kicked the British
I
out.
didn't say non-violence.
you
He
know.
made them look ridiculous. In the end, they could not justify their position because he made them look so friggin' ridiculous in that country.
That's the myth we
There
tell
are
ourselves.
certain cultures in which
Yeah,
shaming will work,
yeah,
and
and
there
it didn't.
are others that won't work on. The
Mhm.
British were susceptible to being publicly shamed and humiliated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Whereas if you try that with American soldiers, you're going to get shot in the face.
You just don't even get on the news. Like
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
the big
there's no
thing is
way.
like Gandhi could go to the reporter. This is like I got to go when I was in Maharashtra, Pune, to the
Mhm.
place where they had him imprisoned and see the museum there. And it was wild. So they would like he was a master media manipulator before anyone even knew how the media really worked. And
Yep.
he would call these people to come and witness. And the thing is, like, what happens in America, you just don't get on the news. Like, they would
Yeah.
just never allow a Gandhi to be seen.
Mhm.
How do you guilt people if people don't know what the heck is going on? The
Or
billionaires
if they
bought
have
TikTok and
no
silenced it.
shame, they
You
have
know?
no guilt, they have not been brought up in a society that is
Yeah,
constantly shaming and guilting each
that's
other
true.
every time they turn around, then it's a whole different language.
That's also true.
You're not drawing on anything, you're just smacking someone in the face and they're gonna
Yeah.
smack you back.
Yeah.
Right.
I
It's just
I
that
don't.
simple.
All
We
right.
don't
So, but
have it, you know.
you're using personal examples, and I will not get involved in a confrontation with somebody unless I'm willing to kill them, unless it is a life and death situation. And that doesn't mean I'm a passive resistance kind of person. What I have found in my experience is the people who have tried to make me look bad, tried to destroy my career, tried to say, all sorts of shit about me, is in the end, they end up, one, either finding out the truth and apologizing, or two, looking so frigging ridiculous that I'm vindicated in the end. And that is something that I do magically, is like in the end, turn their energy around. So it goes back against themselves,
Oh, we
right?
do that all the
That is
time.
very easy to do magically.
Yeah, it
And
is.
and they end up being the one that suffers worse. But I'm not going to give them the gift of my aggression or letting them know that they've even gotten to me. I'd rather laugh in their face. And when it all goes wrong for them, guess what they hear echoing in their ears is Shay laughing at them. Yeah,
I
which is
mean,
success
I
is the best
remember
revenge.
growing up with my friends, and we're queer. We're mostly non-white. I'm the one white person, and we used to get chased down by real skinheads. And it's like I wasn't out to kill anyone because that would have been insane and would have caused more problems. But I sure as heck was fighting and defending myself, and it was just a reality. Tribal war
That's
was a
a that's a
reality.
life
Race gang
that's
culture
a
was a
that's a
reality. There
life-threatening
was no not
situation.
fighting back.
It is.
And this is
That's a
this is
life
my thing. It's like nonviolence is such a fucking privilege.
no,
It
no,
just
no.
It is.
is.
It is.
No, what we're
Sorry.
talking about is a life-threatening situation. I've been in life-threatening situations. You've been in a life-threatening situation. If
Not
you're in a
necessarily
life-threatening
life-threatening
situation,
situation.
if
Gang
you're being
violence,
chased by
robbery.
skinheads, it's life-threatening. Being chased by skinheads is life-threatening, right?
No,
So,
It's a trip. It's a trip
it's
to
trip.
distinguish,
mm,
between
But there's
somebody
a
who's
difference between.
tearing you down because they're about to physically attack you, and someone who's just trying to be funny, because this is a different reality. This is what we live with. And so we don't even start with that like the British do. The minute everybody walks in the pub, they start, what to us sounds like tearing each other down. And then the next step will be physically violent. So we leave. And we're not leaving because we're offended. We're leaving that because in our culture, that's the precursor to physical violence. And so we get up and walk away. And then they're like, see, they got offended. And it's like, yeah, actually, no, it's just a different language and a different culture. And I'm out. That's not, nobody is winning the argument. It's that
Yeah.
that's a weird thing to do for us.
It's also,
You wouldn't
I've
do it
witnessed,
unless you were
okay,
gonna hit somebody, right?
I witnessed,
So,
when I was growing up, my whole thing was ska and reggae, and I witnessed that whole culture, the whole skinhead thing get usurped by Nazis, and we had to try to
yes,
fight and
that
defend it.
happened.
But you know what? What also happened? But here's the thing: when that happened, there was one good thing about it, and that was you could tell what these people look like. You could tell them in the crowd. But then all of a sudden, in the 2000s, they
Yeah.
all became hipsters.
Yep.
They all stopped doing that, and it all became a joke. They all started lying, and they all just started infiltrating into
Yeah.
everything and
Yeah.
ruining everything, and they looked normal, and the only way you could tell was the jokes.
No, nothing scares the shit out of
Fraudulently.
me like Portland, Oregon, man. Oh, the nice vegan hippies with their coffee. Do you know that's a hub of human trafficking and has always been? And now they all look like you. What the heck? That place is
Yeah.
scary beans.
It's a
Really
scary
Yeah.
thing.
scary.
Like, they got like in my place, the big thing is these action clubs where these people get together at gyms and they start fight clubs. And part of the fight club is you go chase down the queer and the minority and you beat them up. Like this is just like
Yeah.
this is the reality that this is happening in some of these places, this
Yeah.
kind of weaponized violence.
No, it's
And
so
it's just
shitty.
gotten ridiculous. And it's all born out of this satire. And I have a hard time separating it, you know? And just telling us it's all jokes, it's like that allows that stuff to come in.
Mm.
Oh God, no. I think we're talking about two
No,
separate
and
things here.
I know we're talking about two different things, but there's an aspect here where it's like, if people are being rude and are saying these horrific jokes, we got to shut them down and not allow it. And I
And the best
honestly
way to shut
believe
them
this.
down is to make them ridiculous. And look, there's a situation where we've had somebody who has been completely out of control to try and destroy a group of people. And what we've done is gone, okay, what about, like, somebody in the community went, well, they're behaving insane. How about we get I don't know what you call it over there, but over here it calls observation. So they get put into observation. These people who are skinheads and things like that, they can get put into observation without being arrested, which gives them less human rights than what arresting them does. You just report them to mental health. This person has a mental health problem. They're a danger to other people and themselves. They get picked up. They get picked up and put in observation. Do that 2 or 3 times. They calm down really quickly. Right. And they're made look ridiculous within their community because they've been picked up by mental health.
I think a big
Humor,
thing we do need
yeah,
to we
I
I
wish
think
we had mental health services in
yeah,
the
this is
States.
the
That
thing.
would
We
be
need mental
fucking
health
cool.
and youth services. You
We
know,
don't have any,
when I was when
yeah,
I growing up and living this kind of thing and having to deal with
yeah,
that extremism, I
yeah.
was, I had to learn about it and I did my due diligence into it. And the people who I met who got out of it and the literature all confirm it's almost always young men from broken families who don't have support. They don't have family support. They don't have options. And then these groups, they give them identity. Oftentimes they give them a home, they give them a job, and they give them an enemy, someone to blame. And as a young person, when the world doesn't make sense and you're raging with hormones, an enemy is the best thing you can give some of these young men. They feel
Yeah.
empowered and they feel purpose. And this turns people into zealots overnight.
The
Yeah.
culture I came
I
from,
But most of these people, you can
mocking
get them
someone who's
into a
about to
relationship
attack you,
and they
it
leave it.
makes it worse, actually.
yeah.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
what has made it better for me as a small cis female is actually getting very serious. That's what works to stop the onslaught is, are you okay?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, what I find, like, you got to get people in community. It's love and community that takes people out of this. That
And
takes
this
people
Yeah.
is
out of
where
it.
100%.
this renewed like
100%
death penalty for sex offenders, etc. It's always the sex offenders, isn't it? It's never the abusers that are not using sex. Like, how is this happening? All of a sudden you find people that marched against the death penalty, all of a sudden they're for it. And this is where they're completely missing it. There is no sex abuser that wasn't sexually abused. It would never,
Oh
it
yeah.
doesn't happen. And so it actually doesn't break the chain. And that's the problem with this reintroduction of capital punishment that we have in the States and in China.
Going back to
Absolutely.
what you were saying there, Snappy, you know, you were describing basic cult inculcation. You know, people get put into a cult that way, whether it's Jehovah's Witnesses or whatever. You know, they take vulnerable people, they give them a community, they isolate them from the other community, and you blame these
Yeah.
people. Basic cult 101. But what I often do when I have like single mums go, my teenage son's out of control, I go, okay, go and find a reputable martial arts teacher and go and get them in a martial arts.
This is
Somebody
the
that,
problem. This is where it gets
yeah,
really sad, because what I mentioned was these action clubs. And this is
mm,
where my heart breaks, because the very thing you're talking about, which is a true lifeline, has been
mm,
weaponized to take these vulnerable youth and indoctrinate them, you
yeah.
know,
But there's
because
good
you're
ones and
absolutely right.
there's good ones and there's shitty ones. But
And you
you
got
can
to be
find the good
careful, is
ones.
all I'm saying, is that it's just,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. But
our young,
that is one
our young
solution. But
men
if you
are,
put the
go ahead,
yeah,
sorry.
if you put the time into doing the research and finding the good ones, like my son in Sydney teaches
Nice.
jujitsu, and he teaches kids jujitsu. And on this level, he's very much about family and teaching respect to kids that don't really have a father to teach them respect and things like that. So there are really, really good organisations, and there are thugs. Stay away from the thugs. You
And
want a good, or yeah.
I don't know about everywhere else, but in the States, we recommend teaching young men how to fend off military recruiters and stuff like that.
Mm,
You gotta
Absolutely.
know before it happens,
mm,
what to say, how to defend yourself, how to get out of there.
Yeah.
mm.
You know, I mean, yeah, I think it's just also it's just so important that people join things and be a part of things and
Mm,
develop real world in-person
yeah,
friendships and community. Go out, touch grass and do something, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Like
100%,
it's
100%,
that's what
100%.
really is going to save us and is going to empower us, and that we need to be doing, and it's like, um I
You
remember,
can,
a big thing that was a massive help to me was, as a young person, was having access. We had a youth program, and the youth program had, you know, my government still has a little bit of socialized stuff, and we still had to pay a bit, but they actually had people who ran a little youth community center where there was movie nights, and the big thing that hit me was they would take us on nature walks, and they point out all
mm,
the mushrooms, and they tell you what all the plants were, and they tell you what you
mm,
could actually eat, what you could actually use, and you're in that stuff, like real practical knowledge. I don't, but people
mm,
need to get out of this politic and
mm,
identity and in nation, like all of it. It's like we see young people, they're looking for some kind of connection, some kind of self-understanding, and they're looking at the world that has destroyed and taken this from everyone. And this is the big problem with so many of us, is that, you know, our current society exists to destroy every real identity except for ones that can be commodified and sold and made meaningless. Because if they had real meaning, then you wouldn't be needing a new one, and they couldn't keep selling you the pill. So they've denigrated all identity, all true culture into nothing but consumerism or the feeding of the consumerist fire. You're either a producer or a consumer, and that's it. And now we have young people who are born into this society and they're going, who the fuck am I? And then you get radical politics coming in that gets people all messed up. And then we freak out about this current situation. But this is why, because we've completely lost our connection to real culture, to the humanities. And what should tell you that this is the plan and why, and this is the great evil that they're trying to do, is I saw an interview with that guy who runs Palantir, okay? The
Oh God.
CEO of Palantir, and he says the biggest evil facing our society today are educated women in the humanities, empowered women. And we're going to support AI because it's going to promote working class conservative men over liberal women. And I'm just thinking, like, empowered women who can educate the youth and educate them in real culture, like the classics. This is what we absolutely need. This is the
Yeah.
only thing that can fight against our educational collapse, you know?
Yeah. I mean, all
If
three of
you're
us, all three of
educated
us.
enough, you can create a comfortable distance between yourself and the people who actually do want to destroy you.
The three of us know how important culture is. We all study culture. We could study ancient culture. We study contemporary culture. We look at culture. And to have a human without culture is like having a bird without wings. We are culture people. That's what we do. And we have to create culture around us or be immersed in culture. And, studying the humanities, whether you're a man or a woman or somewhere in between or anything else, it's important because we need this, right? We need to understand what makes us what we are today. We are standing on the shoulders of giants. Who are these giants and what do these giants make us today? Right? And that is the question we all need to ask ourselves. Yeah.
But isn't
That's
it
what I
so much
like
better
about
if I
this.
could sell you a digital culture that has no real world implications that you can just keep in the digital realm and keep spending money on, obsessing, devoting your time, devoting your energy to, creating and manifesting in this secluded virtual world away from the rest of us where we get to live and control you? Because that's really what they're doing. It's not like people, you're right, are always going to be cultural, but what have they done? They've taken our youth and they've taken our culture and replaced it with consumer garbage, with pure
Well, but
fantasy.
that's when
Now,
you need
real
a art
artists will still
club and
be
a
able to
book
work
club
within
and
this, but they also they're working against the stream of capital trying to dominate them, you know? Sorry, I didn't mean to
it's
interrupt.
challenging for every teacher to allow that space to just be empty. When you bring someone to their creative energy and to actually creating something, and don't tell them what to create. Just you have to learn, everybody has to learn how to zip it at that point and not try to fill that space we've created with Jesus or any other or Athena or any other trip, just allow that amorphous, chaotic precursor to the creative impulse, allow it to be free. Like what could possibly go wrong? Western civilization is already falling. There's nothing you can do about it. There's no one to blame. These are cycles. All you have to do is wait for the cycle to complete. But no, we have to try to bomb it or put something in it or feed it a
We have to be the
narrative
seed.
or make
We
your
have to be
kid
the
think
seed
like
that can
you or
water
whatever. Just
the
leave it,
cycle.
And you've got to be around people. I mean, like I was thinking the other day, like I do art, I do music, I'm a creative person, I love creating. And my creativity gives me an income now because I've been creative for so long. But I've never learned to read music. I've never been to art school. But people who have learned to read music and been to art school like my music and like my art. And the way that I learned it was simply by being around people that did art or music, and I absorbed it. Like I used to have a music store, and some of the best musicians in Australia would come in and buy instruments. And being around it all the time, you start to absorb this and you start to want to produce something in this field. You want to create value in this field. And again, you're not going to get it unless you actually get out of a room and go and spend time with somebody else who's doing some stuff like this. If there's anything that people love out there, go and find a group of people who are doing it and hang
There are
around them for a while.
always musicians. There are always theater nerds. And they're the better time, guarantee it.
Yeah. Yeah, just go and hang with them. Go and hang with some people for a while. And if you are just in one group, get out of that group for a while and go hang with a different group.
The
Right?
hiking nerds, the camping nerds are really cool, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right.
And the good
You know,
good thing about the line is being online is you can find these groups, but then don't just spend time online with them. Get out, go and spend time with them and absorb it, because you get it by just being with other people. You absorb culture.
right.
You
And
just
also recognize the moment in history that we're in, so that we're in a really lucky 1% window where, yeah, on one hand, all the media that is being produced is fake, but also at the same time, we have access to all of the classics that have ever been written. And that's not going to last for very much longer, you know? But, you know, I remember like talking to my professors in university. They were like,
Mm,
I had to go to university to get access. There
mm,
was a time when you couldn't get the academic work. You weren't allowed to read a lot of these
mm,
classics. Now you can just get access to every single thing at the top, at the tip of your finger, especially if you're creative and you're
mm.
willing to push against the system. You can get everything and
Yeah,
take advantage. We
like
can
I was
really, you can teach yourself. Now is an autodidact read, you know?
I like this. Like there's a new translation of some new texts, that goes, it's a companion to the Greek magical papyrus. And I've been doing some Hermetic workings. That quote that I sent you earlier was out of this online. I went
Mhm.
through it and I was like, where'd it come from? Came from this book that's sitting in my lounge room. But it's like, this is released in 2018. It's already accessible, completely accessible and indexable online. It's just like that never happened before. For something to become a classic, you had to wait. Now it's like you can go and get that from the University of Michigan, and
And
you can
now
go
you
and get.
have to check the pages of each copy that you find online, because a lot of them have been edited
Mhm.
and
Exactly.
changed.
So this is what
That's why it's
Leslie's
sitting there. I
referencing.
went and got it and checked it, so it was good.
I mean, it's so far it's been only happening. It's only been reported in very small instances, and there's been backlash, but they're trying to silence it. So Amazon has been updating the content of earlier books to correspond with advertising. So there was a famous incident that blew up a couple weeks ago, where a person saw them advertising TikTok in a book that was written in the 90s, where references to certain things were edited in order to reference TikTok.
It's
Yeah,
like Blockbuster, when everybody found out that Blockbuster was editing their movies, they got really mad.
yeah. So this is the reason why you want to still go get those physical classical copies, right? The books we
And
can
they
still get.
feel
So a
good and
lot
they
of these
smell
classics you can
good.
still
Books,
get.
actual books.
I
Yeah,
know.
I mean,
I'm
smell good. I
I'm
got
such
the
a.
allergies here. No, they
Mhm. I'm such a bookophile. I really am. I could just
Me
sleep in the middle
too.
of a whole pile of books. I'm quite happy with
Oh, I love books. I
that.
just wish they loved me, and they
Oh,
weren't so hard to
darling.
keep undusty.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what a
Yeah.
great discussion. What a great
Yeah,
discussion.
lots of
I
fun,
think
guys.
Yeah, man.
yeah, and I mean, I think we've really like over this period of these weeks, had a pushback about what chaos is, chaos magic, chaos mathematics, chaos, and what it is and what it isn't, and what it can do, what it can't do. I think it's been a really like if people are following this, I think they've got a good, really good grounding and a good idea of what it practically means, not just theoretically means as well.
You see where it came from? And once you know where something has come from, then you can really truly understand it. Now,
And
the
for
thing with
me
chaos
also,
magic is everyone's doing their own thing. And there's a million different systems out there, right? So some people's experience will be radically different than the things we said here, but that's the fun and the
yeah.
beauty of chaos. The real essence to me of chaos magic is it's play, and it's recognizing the absurdity and taking control of your own, ego, and trying to take control of reality through the use of your ego, you know?
And for me, what's great about these deep dives is it really you really find out why you think what you think, and the whole thread of history that brings us to now, and why we're thinking what we're thinking now, and we don't even
Yeah.
know that Eliphas Levi is renting space in our head, and we didn't even know that, right? Or the spaghetti monster guy or whatever, like, oh, that's why I think that. And it's
Yeah.
just it's illuminating all the corners of the library.
Yeah, and to have these other perspectives, like I would never have thought of Eartha Kitt as a chaos magician before today. Thank you,
Of
Dion. I
course,
would never have
when you
thought of
think
that.
about it, though, of course she was, and
Of
she
course.
really came from nothing. Her magic had to work, and so
Yeah,
Right.
you
and it
know
did. And it
that she
did.
was doing it. Yeah.
She had a great life, manifested a great life for her family, traveled the world, was called the most exciting woman in the world, conquered the world. She conquered the world. She did good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. The real essence of that chaos magic is just being able to create your own system, to create your own reality. And we see this in so many empowered artists across history. And I think the other big thing is just recognizing that the influences and your own personal beliefs, right? Chaos magic tells you to take a step back and go, are you just proving your own ideas? Is this what someone else is telling you about yourself? Take that moment to really sit, and a lot of philosophy will do that, but this is the central thing of chaos magic, and they're hammering it over your head every step of the way. And that can be really, really empowering for people because, so many of us don't recognize like, you know, once you start to realize that so much of all this stuff is just made up nonsense, then when other people are living their own life, it's not going to offend you or bother you, And things like identity don't have a weight as much. Things like culture and nation, they don't have this weight that they do. You see, people die for this nonsense, and it's freaking nonsense, you know?
Exactly. Sad. Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's like, I mean, sometimes, yeah, I don't know. We just need to recognize this. Like, I did this big deep dive with the guys from Stone and Serpents because they were asking me about the Saturnian magic and how did, what's going on with the Christian stuff and how did it become Saturnian?
Yeah.
And to me, it's 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 that fear of death and that playing into belief. And this is the big thing that chaos magic and Discordianism can give you and empower you, is that you can recognize how freaking evil and gross belief is and how gross fear is and what it really does to people. And when you reject that, you can't reject belief. Belief is a part of human nature, but you can utilize it. You can make it a part of your reasoned experience. You can color your own reality tunnel. You can paint it any bloody way you freaking want to, and you can put on someone else's, wear it for a moment and try on another,
Yeah. I've been really enjoying Stones and Serpents. That was a good interview, Snappy. One,
Yeah, it was.
because it's sharpening my Spanish. I'm still determined. Like we had a documentary planned before lockdown to go and do the Camino and trace a lot of the magical traditions. There's actually a lot of stuff that looks like it's entered Greek culture from that Spanish region. So we were going to go and not just, oh, I'm walking across the Camino. Hey, look at me, aren't I great? But we want to go to specific spots while we're walking and look at where these bits of culture came from. And yeah, so it's sharpening my Spanish. And the fact that he's just done a documentary as well is really inspiring. So it makes me go, I've got to get back and do this. Got to get back to my project, get
Oh
back
yeah,
to
those
it, do
guys
it
are
again.
so inspiring because the
Yeah,
amount of effort that they are doing, it's like
yeah,
astronomical. Because
yeah,
and they're doing a podcast and a live show on top of it. Go support
yeah.
Stones and Serpents.
Oh yeah, yeah. And if I like, we went to England and we got to meet Old Boy. So if we go over to Spain, I'll definitely
Yay.
catch up with him too. Yeah, it'd be
I
great.
Terrific.
thought they were in Chile.
They're
Are
they're
they in
they're
Chile?
mainly yeah, so their main location is in Chile, but
Oh,
then they
okay,
operate out of Malta, like
okay.
many of their investors. And originally it started as a project in Malta. Bruno got his
Yeah,
inspirations there, and then Ammon came in after.
yeah, yeah. Ah, there we go. Because I actually thought it was all in Malta. Oh, yeah, so there we
Mhm.
go. Okay, I missed that. I missed Chile.
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah,
okay,
they're a real international crew, those guys. Really, really
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
But we should wind
Fantastic.
down here. Is there any final things you guys want to say about Chaos Magic? Because this is going to be the last episode for the series. Next week, Dion he had to take off on us again, but we're going to dive into punk rock next week.
Oh,
Can't wait.
Magic and punk
yay.
That sounds
Oh,
awesome.
excellent, excellent. Yeah, no, it's look, chaos, proceed with caution with chaos. It is, yes, it is made up. It does work. It is powerful. It can bring chaotic and destructive influences in your life. However, it can be used to shake up things where you feel something needs to be shaken up. That's what it's for. It's not the deep philosophical answer to life, the universe, and everything, but it can actually do a job. And what it does really good, and it creates chaos. It does. Hmm.
It will, you know what, cut your life up, change your
Hmm.
habits, and recognize the beauty of life, because this is a thing. Too many the thing that Chaos Magic will really put you it'll put you on a path. It'll not there's real weight here. And if you play in it, it'll lead you somewhere. But
Mm.
it's gonna, it's gonna be
It
wild. It's gonna be a wild
messy.
ride,
It could be
you know?
messy.
It can be the thing with Chaos Magic is like, okay, you know, if you follow a guru tradition generally, or if you follow a literary tradition, they're going to tell you this is what you do. This is the method. You imitate the guru, and eventually you'll have the guru experience. The truth of that is, eventually you get to that degree where you have to realize you can't have the guru experience. You can't imitate the book, but you're given a framework to go there. There is no framework in Chaos Magic, and they reject the very idea. You got to make it up yourself. So unless you're willing to do the hard work of making it up yourself, don't do it. But because if you're going to just dabble, what you'll wind up just getting yourself all mucked up into things. If you're going to play hard is my
But this
advice.
it
you know
seems to me that we're talking about caustic substances.
Mhm.
And you're gonna want your gloves and your goggles, and you're gonna want a purpose and a
Yeah.
focus, and you're gonna want to find out what your blind spots are and take precautions for that. You want to find out what your occulted desires are, what your suppressed desires are, because those are gonna come out.
Mhm.
And so you're not just taking caustic substances and flinging them around like Jackson Pollock. You're doing this with a focused intention for a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And remember, it's all in the grammar, it's all in the spelling. You get
Mm.
what you ask for. The devil wants to give you what you want, and he will shine that mirror in your face. So, if it's ugly, if it's not what you truly want, if it's something lesser, then you're going to be sent on a profound journey, and you may not like that ride.
Mm.
So
Right.
many
Yeah. Well
times we
said.
think we want a thing just for the feeling. We think we want a house because we think it's going to give us that sense of stability. But
Mm.
if we go ahead and manifest stability, it gets to show up in a way that is actually stable.
Mm.
Might
Mm.
Yeah.
not be what you expect, is what I'm saying. You
Yeah.
might get
And
Absolutely.
what
then
you need.
again, yeah, but then again, why settle for a house when you can have a temple? So, and that's Don't think small. Think big as well.
That's the big thing, right? The real wild chaos magicians are the ones who are utilizing this stuff to transform their whole lives.
Eartha
You
Kitt
can't
wasn't
become
trying to get a job at the soda fountain.
no,
No.
right. Alan Moore didn't just he manifested a global anarchist movement. Grant Morrison, and he turned himself into an androgyne, and so did Genesis. Like these were
Orson
people who
Welles,
were
everything he touched is a classic.
right,
Mm.
exactly. These were people who out either to create high art or transform the world. That's when stuff really works too. You got to dream big.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, this was so much fun. So, Shay, is there anything you want to promote or talk about before we end here?
Well, I thought I'd mention because at the start of the equinox, we started our set of Hermetic workings again. We've already done a Hermetic working to Apollo with a group of people here, physically. In theory, we can also do it online with anybody from anybody in the world. But we've had profound healing, we've had musical experiences, all the things that you would expect from Apollo has manifested for the people who did that Hermetic working, which is good. The next one we're going to do is either Hermes or Jupiter. Probably Hermes is the traditional one to do. So if people want to do a traditional 3,000-year-old Hermetic working to Hermes from the Greek magical papyrus, send me a private message and we will put you in our little private group. And it is a bit of work, right? There is like homework, so don't just think you're going to tag along for the ride. You have to go and prepare yourself and do your work, and then we'll start seeing what sort of changes we can produce in your life with these things as well. Oh, and I've just my new song just got released, so if you want to have a look at that, it's called "I'd Die for You." So it's actually out there on Spotify now. So if you look up Shay, "I'd Die for You," you'll find my new song. So have a look at that.
Right on.
Wonderful. Amazing. And everyone, make sure you send an email to Leslie at leslie.celine@yahoo.com if you're interested in any spiritual work or guidance. She does
Or a copy
spiritual.
of a book or whatever.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
just
If
say
you want a
hi.
copy of her books, right? What
What's
are
your
your.
book called? Yeah, what's your book called, Leslie?
Well, there's a trilogy that I wrote years ago that is the Ariadne Dreamtime Network of Unassuming Psychic Assassins. And book one is called Song of the Siren. Book two is Children of Samaran. And book three is The Peace. And those are violent and sexually explicit, but Becoming Numa isn't. Becoming Numa is nice. And it draws on the Greek tradition, takes place in Etruscan territory in 735 BCE. And so I can send you book one of that, and I'm working on book two right now.
Beautiful,
Beautiful,
beautiful.
beautiful.
But there's
Amazing.
nothing wrong with being sexually explicit and violent. I mean, we do
Oh
need that
no,
too.
I had a wonderful time writing that
Right.
trilogy.
But we do want to give a trigger warning in case people aren't prepared.
No, because this is a lot of people. That's not what they're looking for. But I was tickled, by how the people. No one complained about the violence.
Wow.
Just the sex. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Tells you so
Dear,
much,
dear.
right? All right. Well, this was so amazing. Thank you guys so much. Really had a lot of fun. Everyone go subscribe to Shay at Magic Magazine and make sure you email leslie.celine@yahoo.com. And we'll be back next week with Dion for our first episode into punk rock. So tune in for that. All right. Take care, everyone. Peace.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.